Testing the audio, testing, and muting one more time until we start. Okay, unmuting. Here now on the live stream. And yeah, don't have a ton of people in. I don't think we really had much of a warning with time and stuff like that. We'll get the show started and get into some of the reason. It's been a hectic week. So, oops. Is yours?
Am I muted?
There we go.
Oh, there we go. You're already trailing to silence.
All right, so we'll go ahead and hit the intro and get started on the last show of 2018 for the whole show. I mean, we were saying book club last time, right?
Yeah.
Last book club, and this is going to be the last show. A week late, but hopefully everyone will cry our pardon. So let's go ahead and hit the intro and get started.
7. The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set, and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are quartet, one from many. The palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's Magnum Opus, the Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
And we're here for roundtable number 64, and it'll be the last roundtable of 2018. I almost said 2019. Got to be careful. Because we actually just went through and looked and figured out when 2019 is going to get started. We'll go through our normal intros and talk about that and talk about why we're a little bit late. And yeah, then we'll jump right into, as the screen says, the Flagg Summit. Well, I guess if you're listening to this podcast, traditionally you don't know, but you would know by the title on your podcast. So let's jump right in first off and warn you about spoilers. We want to warn you about spoilers for the Dark Tower series and maybe some into the comic books a little bit, but probably more just the books, as well as The Stand. We will talk about The Stand. I think we've kind of teased that already, that we wanted to talk about kind of his two big appearances in the Stephen King universe. And that is, of course, I mean, I guess you can count Eye of the Dragon as a pretty big one too, but I think that his main event ones are definitely The Stand and the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
So we will talk about those two books, or those the series of the Dark Tower as well as The Stand. So if you don't If you haven't finished those, maybe hold off on this podcast until you've read them, or just don't care as much about spoilers and just, listen to a Flagg summit / debate. Next up, you can find us on multiple places. You can find us on iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher, and you can find us on pretty much any podcast service. I do think somebody engaged recently about finding us on something, and I still need to look into that. I'm forgetting the name of it. I do have their submission thing bookmarked, but it's been a fairly hectic couple of weeks. I haven't had a chance to look into it yet, but I can't remember, and I don't have it written down who it was that requested it, but I will definitely look into that and get us put on one. And that, I guess, can transition us into what I usually say is if there is a podcast service that you use that we're not available on, let us know, and I will try to make sure that we are available there. The only one exception I think would be Spotify. We haven't really applied for them yet, but I know that they're very hard to get onto, so that one might be tough. Next up, if you want to, if you could be so kind as to subscribe, rate, and review us on any service, but specifically iTunes, that always helps the show and helps more people find the show and grows our extended quartet and hopefully finds us more Flagg fans. And then next up, we have the show notes at darktowerpalaver.com. The website actually crashed on us. I don't know if you know, but there was a point I went to, I think it was for the last show, and I was jumping on there because even if we don't do show notes, because it was a book club, and I told everyone, but I usually still do post the show itself. And I actually have the website that we do our podcast through is automatically set to post just basically a post that has the description that I type out, as well as like a link to listen to the show. So I guess that's another way you can listen to the show is on darktowerpalaver.com. But when I went to go make sure that had loaded correctly, I got to a dead screen and for the website. So it took me a little bit to get that fixed, but I got it. It's all back up and running. Although for this show, I'm not sure that we're necessarily going to have a whole lot. It's we're kind of on a streak now of ones that we don't really have notes for. But I personally can't think of anything that we'll have notes for. But as we progress here, if we end up finding stuff for notes, you can find that at darktowerpalaver.com. Mm-hmm. And next up, we want you guys to be part of the extended quartet, and there's a number of ways to do that. And Peter can let you know how the hows and whys.
So if you want to email us to say why Flagg's such a bad guy, you can do it at darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. If you want to post about how horrible he is, it's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. You can also tweet at Tad and tell him how horrible Flagg is. And that's at darktowerpod. That's at darktowerpod. And then you can check out our shows where we talk about how horrible Randall Flagg is. It's youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. We have all of our old roundtables on there, as well as 1 or 2 Unfound Doors now.
On YouTube?
Yeah, we have Castle Rock and The Stand Part 1.
Yeah.
Which Stand Part 2 coming 2019.
Yes,
to
indeed.
Dark Tower Palaver near you.
Indeed.
So, yeah, that's our social media. Make sure to reach out and let us know what you think of the Flagg Summit. This is the first of its kind with Dark Tower Palaver, where we're going to discuss a very specific topic.
Yeah, indeed. And I guess the other thing is we talked about this a few weeks back. I think we'll just throw up some polls and say Flagg, good or bad, on our Facebook and Twitter. I think we are able to do polls on both of those. And whether we look at that as like a win or a loss for the debate here, I don't know, because I think a lot of people's minds might be set, but I don't know. If anyone does change their mind, I guess you can let us know on all of our social media that Peter told you about. Let us know if your mind changed, but also we can just do that because that would also give us information about, where people lie. Because we've had emailers that will say like where they fall, but overall, the overall listenership, I wouldn't say that we know fully where everyone stands. But
could we even put a poll up on our website? With the show notes?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'll look into that. I've done a lot of the show notes and stuff, but I haven't looked too hard into polling and stuff. There might even be an app for the website, the website service I use. I'll have to definitely look into that and find out if that's something that we can do. And I guess the other thing we can mention too is we are the live stream is looking a little bit more I don't know, not as busy as usual, but I will say it's we're into the Saturday before Christmas now.
Yep.
This was supposed to be last week, and so I'm not necessarily I don't know, I didn't know what to expect for turnout, but I could definitely figure that a lot of people may be traveling for the holidays and stuff like that. So no big deal there. So we have a couple things to talk about for the news before we get into the Flagg Summit proper. The first thing is about why we're late. I think I can't remember what I tweeted exactly, but I live in a house that was built in like the I don't know, 50s, I think it
50s?
was. 40s 40s or 50s. It's an old
I
house.
thought you said it was 40s when we first moved in here when we were living together right after high school.
Yeah, so it's an older house, and older houses tend to sometimes have issues. And I had like a leak problem, so I had to replace some stuff plumbing wise. And the theory is that basically the new fixtures basically worked way better than the old fixtures, and that actually may have caused some issues. So there was like some flooding and all kinds of fun stuff. Couple days there without being able to use any kind of liquid without, or nothing could drain,
Water.
basically.
Yeah.
No water and stuff. So it was like one of those like go to the gym and shower and stuff like that. So it's been a kind of a hellish thing for the like 3-4 days there. And then also I wanted to cry everyone's pardon. It's been probably one of the busiest days maybe ever, or busiest weeks in terms of professionally for me, maybe ever. Just as you move up the chain, things tend to get sometimes more responsibility, and it's a pretty big period at work right now. And like this last week has been an absolute nightmare, like long days, destroying me. Like by the time I get done with work, a lot of times I've been falling asleep and stuff. So I haven't really had a chance to like tweet out and let people know what we were planning. I honestly don't know that we even talked until like late last night, or not late, but it was yesterday evening for me. It was almost bedtime that I texted you like, yeah, we're still on for tomorrow, right? So like, I don't know.
We talked last week when I woke up and I was doing a little bit of research early morning hours, go over my notes and everything like that I have for the Flagg Summit. And then I get a text from Tad way earlier than normal, because usually it's like a, hey, we're still on for later, right? Kind of thing. Or usually, like Tad said, he'll do it the evening before. It's like, hey, tomorrow too, right? Tomorrow at 3.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And we usually have it planned out ahead of time. And then I get a text from Tad at, what was that, like 8, 9 in the morning? It was like, it was pretty early for you, which is really weird, because I know how much you go to, especially with Tad, he goes to movies so frequently, like Friday nights. He likes experiencing newer movies with the audience. He likes the
shared experience.
The shared experience. Yeah, that's the way he puts it. And I get a text from him at like, oh, geez, it was 7:30, 8 in the morning. I mean, like, my kid hadn't even woke up, and that just screams way too early for Tad to be awake. And he's like, hey, I got a plumbing emergency. I really don't know if we're going to be able to record. And I'm like, okay, keep me posted. Help. Like it just turned into a situation where obviously we weren't able to record.
Yeah, because it was funny, because once we basically got everything situated with the new stuff, like we thought everything was fine. I'm like, okay, cool. But then the flooding happened shortly after that, so it was the point where I think we finally called it and just said, it's turning into something worse. We can't really, it's not going to happen. We'll have to bump it to next week. So, which is why we're here now. Like I said, we're only a few days before Christmas. This is generally when we'd be on break. We would have done the episode last week, but that's why we're late. We do apologize for that. But I guess the one thing is that for everyone that likes their regular fix, as it were, right?
Yeah.
Is we looked it over for the calendar to figure out where holidays and everything line for 2019. And we will be starting back up for 2019 in 2 weeks. It'll be 5th. January 5th, 2019. So basically we will just continue our cycle like we normally do. I mean, I know we're a little bit late, so we broke the cycle a tiny bit.
No,
but like
we're starting a new cycle.
Yeah.
Like rolling.
Yeah, but in terms of people are just living week to week, like whatever, like it'll seem normal for you. There won't be an extra long break that sometimes we have here as we kind of close down for the holidays and get prepped for the new year and try to align the dates to where it'll kind of miss holidays and miss like personal dates like birthdays and anniversaries and things like that. So it worked out really well to where we'll be back in a couple weeks. So it won't be any huge break, which is awesome. So that's what we got going into 2019. And I got a lot of stuff I think that, I don't know, I'm excited for. I think like there's a lot to talk about, a lot of cool stuff. And hopefully we could even get into some news on the mini series. I'm hoping we'll be hearing about that sooner rather than later. Even if it comes down to them telling us that Amazon's not going to pursue it, and that would put us back into the kind of the nether world of like there is no more adaptations coming in the foreseeable future. But hey, at least there'd be an answer at that point. I hate this waiting thing as we wait around for figuring out if something's going to happen, or if it's not going to happen, whatever. So hopefully we'll have some news on that in 2019 and either close the door on that altogether, or we move into things like casting and that kind of fun stuff. So plus there's all kinds of cool stuff there.
And also this is something that we've talked about several times now. I mean, the Expanded King universe is starting to open up for us, like the Rose, where we've branched out a little bit. We did Castle Rock. We did Stand. Many other doors are starting to open up for us, and we're excited to explore them. I mean, something that we've talked about before. Outsider.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm reading again for the
Oh,
second
are
time.
you?
Well,
So maybe I should jump on it then, and so that we can so we can somewhat line up and do a because I think that's the main thing with the Unfound Doors. It's what's nice about it is being as fresh off of it as possible. Because like we had some scheduling things like right when we both finished it for the first time, to where it just wasn't able to get pulled off, and then by the time we
had a book club, and then we had a very special episode. I can't remember which one it was, but it was right around like August or September maybe.
Yeah,
is when because you read it first. And
Yeah.
you got done, you're like, you have to read this book as fast as you can. I'm like, okay, well, I'm in the middle of a book. And you're like, no, you need to read this book right now. And I actually stopped the true crime book about Ted Bundy that you had showed me to read The Outsider.
And I told you that you'd know the moment you got to the point that I told you had to. And you did. You knew exactly what it was.
And that reason is the reason I'm reading it again is because I went back through that.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So yeah, we're, well, maybe I'll get back on that to where we have that lined up to where we can kind of do it kind of fresh off of things. So that's good to know. But yeah, so we got some fun stuff for 2019, the year of the Dark Tower, right? In 2019.
The year of the Tower.
Yeah, indeed. Or Turtle, whatever you want to call it, or
Natural.
Yeah, if you're into like the whole animal, I don't know what the real animal year is, but
should we look it up and see?
It's probably like the stick bug or whatever, one of those.
No, they always have like the same 6 animals.
Oh, is it?
Right? Yeah.
I
the
thought
ox, the dog, the rat.
No, I didn't. I've never paid
the
attention.
monkey.
I've never paid attention to that crap.
That's the Chinese one.
Yeah, I've never paid attention to that stuff. I think there was one single year that it was like a monkey or something. I do remember.
It's the Chinese zodiac.
When I was in when second grade school, I remember hearing that.
Pig. It's the year of the pig.
The Dixie pig.
Hey.
It would be a good year to have a pet pig, wouldn't it?
Pig is the 12th in the 12-year cycle of Chinese zodiac. The year of the pig include 2007, 2019, and the next one will be in 2031.
Interesting.
Today I learned.
Yeah, indeed. Plus, like I said, the Dixie pig. Can't go wrong there, right? Fun place to hang out and eat, right?
No, it's not.
All right. So yeah, that's.
You said we had some news? Or was that the news?
That was it. Just kind of like
our news. I was thinking like news articles.
No.
Oh, okay.
No news, just in terms of like some updates of like why we're here late, and then also letting everyone know when we're going to start back up in 2019. Definitely wanted to get those out there to let everyone know. So, that is pretty much what we got for the intro stuff, and then that brings us to the debate at hand. The ongoing debate now for 3 years? I mean,
it's a lot longer than 3 years.
I was about to say
3 years on record is what we have. Is we have 3 year. We have records of 3 years, but if you go back and ask friends and coworkers, we got maybe a decade on this.
No, it's probably almost our entire friendship. Honestly,
it probably honestly is because I mean. The year we first met was 2001.
Like I can't imagine like the Darth Vader debate didn't come up with us very early on. Being both being Star Wars fans, I just can't imagine that we didn't have that debate fairly early on within the first year.
Well, it also helped that right around then was when we had the prequel movies.
Yeah,
is that we had episodes 1, 2, and 3 right there. I ended up seeing episodes 2 and 3 with you. I mean, episode 3 still holds the record for the most times I've seen a movie within 24 hours in theaters. So
yeah, I think that's going to be a record that stands. I mean,
I almost tied it the other day.
Nowadays, without having the midnight releases, is what really hurts that cause, because it's a little bit tougher to do like 3 from like, because what a movie starts running at about 10. Like literally, you'd almost be going like 10, and that'd give you time to get to maybe like a noon, 1 o'clock showing, and then if you take like a meal break, you would be going to an evening showing. So you could do 4 and 24 hours, but it would be a lot harder. The midnight thing made it easy for us, though.
We shouldn't have done this as a live show.
Why is that?
I'm already outnumbered.
Yeah. We got Chris in the chat here. Let's see. It's only debate because Peter's not knowing the goodness of Flagg. Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get there. But I guess this is even some context talking about, our past is, because I'm sure to your point, you would argue that I tend to side with, as you would call them, the villains.
If anyone watches How I Met Your Mother, I know Tad doesn't. Tad is Barney Stinson. There's a character in How I Met Your Mother named Barney, for everyone like Tad who hasn't seen the show, who thinks that the bad guys in movies are the good guys. Like legit, that's an arc of the characters. That in Karate Kid, Daniel's son is the bad guy.
That's what I was about to bring up, though. You got to admit, if you watch Karate Kid and think about it objectively, the kid calls everything on himself. He really does. Because I watched it recently and I was just like, holy shit! Like this kid is really bringing all this stuff on.
And then the other ones also is that Hans Gruber is a good guy in Die Hard, not John McClane.
Yeah, he's just a
exactly,
business entrepreneur.
Exactly my point. You know what Barney says in the TV show. Hans Gruber, he's just an international businessman.
Yeah,
that's literally what he calls him, and you just called him a business entrepreneur. That's pretty creepy that you've never seen that show, and I know you've never seen that show because it's not up your style.
Is that Charlie Sheen?
No, How I Met Your Mother is the one where he's Bob Saget's telling his kids how he met.
I didn't know Bob Saget was in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's the narrator at the beginning.
So just as I was saying, maybe I'm tipping a little bit to your side to at least bring in the fact that yes, it is generally my Magneto, is my all-time favorite comic book character, like period, like not just X-Men, just across the board. If I have a comic book character, I have to pick, it's I've always loved Thanos.
You literally have a shrine up here to the bad guys with Jabba the Hutt, Emperor Snoke. I don't know what his official
Supreme
Leader. That's what Snoke. Kylo Ren, there's Darth Vader, Magneto. I mean, you're a fan of the Terminators.
Yeah, I got
You're a fan of the bad guys. That's the point. And that's where the debate comes in, is that and this is where I wanted to start, and this is what we talked about before we started the show, is that you have this theory that Flagg is really not a bad guy in the Dark Tower. But you wanted to start with the Stand.
Yeah, and it is. I think it's interesting to think about because it actually did come up because of this show. Like, I mean, I've always loved Flagg, but like, I think it's as we really dive deep into this show, so I could really give this show credit for kind of giving me, because it's one of those things like you can read through something like the Dark Tower series or the Stand however many times, but until you're like going through it in like kind of a very analytical way, like we've done with this show, there's just going to be things that's going to get missed in the larger picture, right?
Yeah.
Like the difference between somebody that's going through and looking at the Mona Lisa versus someone that's like studying it as their doctorate and they're studying every brush stroke of the painting.
Well, the other thing also is that you get into it as well as maybe not looking at it from a different point of view, because like what you're talking about is what I'm doing and what you're talking about with like the casual readers. We're going in and we're looking at the Mona Lisa. But now you have those grad students who are going in and watching the people who are looking at the Mona Lisa. And that's where you're kind of coming in, is you're coming at it from a different angle to see, well, how are people reacting to this and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's exactly what you're doing with Flagg, but that's what you're doing, is you're looking at it from a different angle in a different context than what most people are.
And also looking at this show has helped me, and I think both of us, look at this just way closer. Like say, Kay, you're going to go and drive to work and it's going to take you 45 minutes. So you're going to listen through 45 minutes of stuff. Like, what is that going to get you through? Most likely more than we cover in a couple hours of a book club.
Right.
So are you going to be able to grab a granular element from that and actually like think about and expand upon it? No, it really takes doing a book club where you go through, almost word by word,
right,
sentence by sentence, and then suddenly things start to pop up where it's just like, holy shit, yeah, when I'm taking it in chunks of an hour, I would have missed this concept, but suddenly when you're sitting here going through it and spending 20 minutes just looking at this one sentence, like suddenly it's like, holy shit, like, what's the larger meaning of this in what it might unveil?
Yeah, and not only that, but then you also have someone else's perspective, like with me and you. And that kind of goes back to my example with like the Mona Lisa, is that, we're not just there studying the picture by ourselves, where we're just thinking our own thoughts. It's you talking to me while I'm looking at the Mona Lisa for the first time.
Yeah.
Or the 100th time.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh wow, Peter makes an excellent point here. And it's come up several times in the book club episodes where I always get it backwards in my head. I look at the dialogue and you look at the descriptions, or is it backwards?
I usually look at the dialogue.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. You look at the dialogue and I look at like the descriptive paragraphs. And when you listen to our book clubs, it comes up that way, is that where there's a paragraph where it's Eddie describing something, that's my bread and butter for the Dark Tower. That's my bread and butter for King, because I love his descriptions. And then when you look at an exchange between Eddie and Roland, like they're on the beach and Drawing of the Three, where we've spent a good amount of the year this year is there. That's where Tad shines, is that well, look at what Roland's point here is, look at what Eddie's saying here and everything like that. And that's where we're getting different perspectives, as well as the stuff that's pointed out in the chat with us, like right now Chris is yelling at me saying that Terminators aren't bad guys and Vader's not a bad guy. I mean, obviously he's wrong, but he's entitled to his opinion and can bring it up and everything. So
now, okay, I have to at least throw one at you. because like I know you're very straight laced. You know, you go for like the Boy Scout characters. Like if it came down to like us growing up as young kids as friends, and like I lent you some comic books, I could see you being one that doesn't like the Punisher as much as you liked Captain America. It would, I think that'd be fair to say.
That's fair to say,
especially when you were younger. I think I've worn a little bit of it away from you a little bit to where you can appreciate some of the.
Well, considering my favorite comic book character is one of the most flawed of all time in Batman, so
yeah. But one I want to throw to you because I think it's one that you might. And this is just before we dive into like the talk about Flagg with the stand. The movie The Rock.
Yeah.
Or was it Hummel? I can't remember his rank.
I think it's Hummel. It's Colonel Hummel.
Is it Colonel? That just didn't sound. That didn't sound right.
There's a general.
It's general. It's general.
Yeah, because someone calls him General. Like all sarcastic.
So, in the context of that, do you see him as a villain?
He's a terrorist.
Even though he had no intention of ever doing anything, he's uncovering the basically illegal slush funds, illegal actions that he did.
At the end, though, while his intentions were pure, he's still a terrorist in the end. I mean, you can't make terroristic threats like that. That's against the law.
But you don't see like
that's what he's supposed to be standing up for. At the same time, no, and then that goes back to where we've talked about it before. We've had conversations about police brutality and stuff like that. Very real conversations outside of fiction. That still affects my way of thinking in fiction. Is that while I may agree with him and I may be outraged at the things that he's had to deal with and the families that are being output and everything like that, at the end of the day, you can't use a terrorist act to get your way. That's the bottom line for me. Does he redeem himself in the movie? I mean, this is going into spoilers for The Rock, so I don't know how far you want me to go.
I mean,
the movie's been out for 20 years, right? It's okay to talk about.
I just feel like he's one of the ones that like you could look at and go, he's not really a villain. I would say if there's anyone that's a villain there, it's the dude that Sean Connery throws over the balcony, and the dude that's been covering this shit up for decades, and fucking over Sean Connery's character, like guys like that. These government types and stuff.
No, and there's different levels of evil, and I will give you that. I mean, but at the same time, to put it in a very real context for how my brain works, he was seeing a bad, and he was trying to do something about it. At the same time, that's saying Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, was seeing a bad and trying to do something about it, in my eye. You can't punish the innocent for someone's wrongs. And that's the Boy Scout in me. That's the Jedi in me. That's where and I understand that someone's fucking someone over and people are paying the price. But the people at the football game, what the fuck did they do?
I was going to say it was a 49er game.
So on top of that, I'm a 49ers fan. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, now I see the flaws of asking you here. But.
Well, no, but I mean, if that had been a Seahawks game, I mean, they're our division rival. I really hate that team and everything like that. Even if it had been that, it's the same thing. Two wrongs don't make a right, and that's just how my mind works. Okay, that's just how I'm laced, and that's where it doesn't do you any good to threaten these people who have nothing to do with it. And that's the same thing with like Timothy McVeigh for me. It's like, while you have a point about the federal government, and you've really opened my eyes to that with like what happened at Waco, what happened in Colorado with all the shit with the ATF and everything. That doesn't mean you go blow up a building where no one, there's innocent people there. There was children there and everything like that.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's where my stance as right and wrong are. That's where I draw that line, is that yes, I can see someone beating up a puppy in the street. I'm going to go over and kick the guy's ass, but I'm not going to kick the guy standing there recording its ass.
Yeah.
He may be a douchebag and everything like that, but he's not the one committing the act. And that's where I take my brand of justice, which is one of the reasons why I don't really have that big of a problem with Punisher, because he draws that line very distinctly like I would. You don't hurt the innocent.
Yeah.
You punish the people who are guilty for it. That's why if you look at like the Netflix series, when he snipes someone, he snipes that person. He doesn't just open up and take out the entire room.
Yeah, and then that's where you see that in Daredevil too, even with the hospital thing.
Oh, that's where
infection. There we go. Showing green again. If nothing else, I guess that shows some context for where we both come from. I guess, and like to me, like this is like way back. Like I remember being a kid, like I wanted to be a Darth Vader on the playground. I didn't want to be Luke Skywalker or Han Solo. I remember even like things like I'm trying to think of some of the way. Let's see. I'm trying to think. How did you want to go about it then? Because you mentioned while we were off air that I have some points and stuff. So we want to do like point counterpoint, like I don't know. There's some different. It's different ways we can go about this. What are you thinking?
I mean, the big thing here that is basically the basis for the debate, which is where I think we're kind of starting backwards, is I think we kind of need to start with the Dark Tower and why you don't think Flagg's a bad guy. Because that leaks into the stand and everything like that as well. So I think that's a good place to start for us because...
Well, the points I have on the stand are very self-contained.
Oh, okay.
Basically just argument. And you're right. I think that it is kind of... And I feel like it's almost a supporting thing to like, you know, whatever. Like the Dark Tower's conversation, obviously, today, but... let's see. Okay. Let's see. I just want to make sure. I'm just going to refresh my YouTube side because it's all right. It's showing. Yeah, it's still showing spinning for me, and the colors are.
It's good.
Oh, there we go. Okay, the colors are still somewhat disconcerting, but okay. So now going into
your points on the stand.
Yeah, on the stand. So like I said, early on, I'd say like maybe the first little bit. I don't even know. Maybe the first half or so. What I guess one of my first contentions would be. Is okay. There we go. Now would be that the Boulder folks have no sign that Flagg is bad or a villain beyond their dreams and the words of a religious fanatic. Do we? Because just what it comes down to, it is their dreams, and if we look from my perspective, you look at it from a logical perspective. Is it strange they're all having the same dreams? Yes, but does that mean then that those dreams are still somehow absolutely true? I don't know. I guess I'm mostly looking at this from the perspective of there's a lot of assumptions. I guess the root argument for everything I'm going to say about the stand is there's a lot of assumptions made by by Mother Abigail's people, call it the Boulder people.
Yeah, Boulder's fine.
Even before they get moved to Boulder, but
the free zone
with the Boulder people, I think there's a lot of assumptions of villainy towards Flagg, and even we as readers don't really see a lot to back that up early on. Mm-hmm. And I would so that I guess that would be kind of my first basis point is
to counter that point, like you're saying, counterpoint, they don't do anything about it, and they want to know, which is why they send the 3 spies to go find out.
Yeah,
and that's where what happens to 2 out of those 3? What would have happened to the 3rd if Flagg had caught him?
Okay, well that actually transitions into my second point here. So the Boulder with that is that the Boulder folks with the spies, that is the first antagonistic move between the 2 communities. So if anything, if there is some kind of like issue between the 2, I would say it starts with the Boulder people by sending the spies to begin with, based on basically the first point. That's why I'm like kind of building it. So the first point, they kind of assume they're listening to Mother Abigail without questioning, which is weird, especially when you think of some of the characters involved. Guys like Glenn Bateman, I'm surprised that he didn't, challenge like the fact that we're basically going to start kind of some antagonistic actions towards someone based on it's just weird because they question Mother Abigail a little bit early on, and then it's just weird they suddenly shift and then they don't question it later, especially with like Glenn and I think maybe even Stu. I think sometimes Stu's a little bit more in the realm of like, wait, why are we
are we just jumping without looking?
Yeah. So I would say
and to be fair, like with what Chris just says here in the chat, that they take Mother Abigail's word at it that Randy is bad. And to be fair, it's not just her word. I mean, look at everything that happened in the dreams, okay? Come and see me in Nebraska.
Yeah.
She was there.
Yeah.
But every time someone has a bad dream, I mean, Franz, coat hanger, Flagg.
Yeah.
Stu, the Center for Disease Control, the CDC location up in Stovington. Flagg, it's this apparition. But the thing is that it's a logical conclusion, though, is that if Mother Abigail was the same in everyone's dream, and she was real.
But it is one they have to make a leap to.
Right, they do have to make a leap to it. But at the same time, their first act is not an aggressive one. It's an information gathering one. It's not. No, they didn't go over there to figure out how to destabilize him. They didn't go over there with bombs planted trying to assassinate anyone. They didn't go over there to try and bring down the power.
One did bring a knife to kill him.
One brought a knife and said that if she got a chance, that's one person.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so if we're going to blame the entire free zone off of one person's actions.
No. The other thing, too, is I guess I'm looking at this more in-universe from both sides' perspectives. So I would say, like, from Flagg's perspective, who's to say does he know that she wasn't ordered to do that? We know as readers that she took that initiative herself. She was told not to do anything stupid or whatever. I guess I'm taking the like whether you want to call it devil's advocate side of like from their perspective, they're spies. And I would say that also in the perspective of the world now, if we found like a Russian spy, in some form right now, I think that would potentially, I don't think that would cause a war, but I think that would really shake up things in terms of like, because suddenly like, why the fuck do you have a spy in the United States? You know what I mean? So I would say, could it be the same thing? Like, you're right, they're not going and planting bombs, but is the act of spying itself antagonistic?
Well, okay, so does that mean, so by that same rationale, does that justify his actions with Nadine and Harold bombing the committee and trying to kill them all?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact details on do we get like direct that he is telling them, or is it more of just like
he tells Nadine to go to Harold and to seduce Harold to get him to do it?
Well, because I thought it was his idea that kind of come up with.
No, it was his idea to do something. It was bombing the committee. Was Nadine brought that idea to him, and so that's where he got the idea from. Is basically Flagg funneled it.
I thought it was more just Harold just like basically trying to make it in good with Flagg.
No, Harold wanted to kill Stu. That's all he wanted to do.
Yeah,
he wanted to kill Stu.
Because I do.
But he didn't care about the committee.
So I distinctly remember the scene where Nadine comes in on him in the basement working on the TNT, and she doesn't know anything because like he ends up yelling at her about how dumb she is because like I'm dealing with nitroglycerin, it's unstable. So that's why I'm just like I feel like it's more of like him trying to set himself up in the new society.
No. What it was originally Harold's idea was to kill Stu. When they went to go search for Mother Abigail, the day she disappeared, Ralph was off and Stu was there, and Harold intended to murder him and leave and go to Vegas. That was it. He chickened out, didn't do it, went home. Nadine was waiting for him, and Nadine's like, no, you don't make him pay. You make them all pay. And that's where Harold came up with the idea for the bomb. So Flagg influenced her into doing that, influencing him into doing that. And that was the thing. It's like, I mean, like even look at like the judge. The guards were ordered to kill him, to execute him, not escort him back, not any of those sweet things that he says to his people. And we know that. I mean, obviously you're
we
trying
as readers,
obviously you're trying to play this off and everything like that. But I mean, like just to go further with that, look at how Ralph, Glenn, and facing on the third one's name, Ralph, Glenn, Larry were treated when they were brought into Vegas. They were caught sneaking into Vegas, is how Flagg put it. Well, no, they didn't. They walked down the freeway. They were coming on their own volition. Oh, they came with intent to murder. We came with nothing. Like, we didn't even carry a knapsack.
Before I say what I'm going to say this has absolutely nothing to do with reality. This is only me talking about the stand.
Right.
I would say that Flagg has secured his borders. He all the way up through, because he catches the judge in, like, Idaho, right? Oregon? Or is Idaho in the TV series, I think.
Idaho in the TV series, Oregon in the book.
Okay. I tend to blur the two things together between the book and the series at times.
He had come across and he was starting to drop back down, I think.
The one that always gets me is the reference to the Rolling Stones song with Flagg when he says, "Hope he guessed my name." Because that's just such a cool line in the series. I always expect in the book, and then when it's not there, I'm like, son of a bitch, I forgot that wasn't in the book. So that's another one. Yeah, so he gets caught up there. So like from there down to like at least the Arizona part, right? Because if they were walking down through Utah, that would cross them through Arizona
just a little bit, the corner
into Nevada towards Vegas. So I would just say that it's he has his quote unquote his border security, and he's secured it to where hopefully and. We see that with Tom as well, right? When he's leaving, like he
crosses a point where he's like, okay, I'm out from under the eye.
Yeah, he also has like sentries, right? Like
because he's looking for Tom because he wants him dead.
But even when they're prepping him, they tell him that chances are he's going to have protection. Like it's the difference of, I guess, the two societies. I mean, well, and also Vegas a little bit more exposed versus Boulder is surrounded by mountains. It's already somewhat protected just by the the topography,
natural
right?
defenses.
Yeah. So I would just say that again, like that's almost more of just like protecting yourself against, because again, let's look at it in the larger perspective, right? Like we know the Boulder exists, but do we know for certain, does the book clear it with us that those two are the only things that exist? Are there raiders out there? Are there like marauders? Like is Flagg potentially protecting himself, especially with the people up in Oregon, Idaho area from maybe groups up in Canada. Like, you know, I would say that, like, the defense is there. Yes, he does give the order, obviously, to kill and make a what would you call, like an example, a warning out of the judge. But which, yeah, it's a tough one.
He wanted to do it to all three of them. He wanted to send all three heads back, which is why he got so furious when Dana offed herself. Dana, right? Yeah, Dana Jurgens.
Yeah.
He gets so furious at that because the judge already got. Well,
no, he's really mad with her because he's trying to get the information about the third person.
Not only that, but the judge got boshed, so he's like, okay, now I got number 2. I guess I'll go get her because he already knew about her.
Yeah,
and everything, and so, you know, that's where when she kills herself, one, you're right, the information is gone. Now he has no access to the third.
Because that's where he's starting to slip. Yeah, basically, that's some of the chinks in the armor where it's starting to be like, okay, and his people are seeing it. It's like, okay, shit's happening that he can't control. You know, I think Indian Springs goes up right around the same time, to where suddenly, like,
it's after that because
things are going wrong, to where people are like, yeah, like he seemed to be really in control. Now suddenly it seems like he's not. Like,
yeah,
and Dana was one of the big things.
Dana was one of the big things because not only that, but there was witnesses right outside the door that heard it.
Yeah, and knew that there was information to be got.
The information to be got that didn't get. And then what happens is that's when that the chick that almost kills Nick and Tom.
Yeah, I'm blanking on her
Judy
name.
Laurie.
Yeah,
comes to Lloyd and tells him about Tom being in Vegas.
Yeah,
and being close to Nick, and that's where he goes to Flagg after Nadine gets back with Flagg, where Flagg brings Nadine in, and that's where Flagg gets pissed at Lloyd for not telling him right away about that, because then he orders the pilots up to go hunt for Tom.
Yeah,
and because he was feeble-minded, that's why Flagg can't see him, and that's when Trash Cans Man sabotage
blew up the
helicopter, then blew up Indian Springs, killing a ton of people and everything like that. Flagg orders Trash Can Man to be put down humanely, quietly, quickly.
Yeah,
when he comes back and everything.
Yeah, I guess the other thing I would say is kind of a sub point to this is, like, I see what I see, especially reading it last time, having the Flagg Summit in mind, as I knew we were going to be doing it, was do we get, even as readers, having the third person view of everything? Do we hear for sure that Indian Springs is going to be used to destroy Boulder? No. Until after, because again, I feel the spies could be viewed as an antagonistic thing that starts the thing. Before the spies happen, do we have any indication of Indian Springs, let alone the fact that it's going to be used to destroy Boulder preemptively? That's all I'm saying, and it's just written in a way that I feel like you want, after the spies, we really get the sense, yes, he's going to go in and fucking obliterate them. If he could send tank columns in, he would, or maybe, no, I think that's Boulder people that bring
flame tracks and stuff like that is what he was hoping.
Well, the Boulder people talked about tank columns, so I think I pulled that from them. But he, you know, if he had a chance to just send in infantry even before the snowfall, he would have. But I feel like that's kind of after some of the that's, I guess, my perspective of things.
Well,
like, I'm not even saying necessarily for sure this is the truth. I'm just saying, is there a question to be raised that potentially some of the antagonistic nature?
No, because the antagonistic nature of the spies and everything like that, again, was information gathering. So that's where I feel that it was point counterpoint, but it was Flagg who went to the nuclear option, pun intended, before Boulder did. I mean, Boulder was trying to gather information because, like you said, they admit that they don't know, and that's why they commissioned the spies, because they want to know. What was Flagg's reaction to that? Okay, let's execute all three of these motherfuckers and make a statement so that when we roll in the spring, not if we roll in the spring, when we roll in the spring, we're going to fucking kill every single man, woman, and child in Boulder. So it's not a cause and effect because of the spies. It was, well, now look what these motherfuckers did. I'm going to use this towards my own people, which is, I think, where you're getting it to where, well, maybe it's because of the spies. No, it wasn't. He had this plan all along. That's why Indian Springs was up and running before they even got the power back on.
I mean, that's where you can dabble into the real world a little bit and just say that access to military things doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to use it, right? You could have a very powerful military with the intention of just being defensive or reactionary, you know, like reacting to any kind of attack. I would say that we don't necessarily know for sure in black and white that Flagg intended to destroy Boulder. I could see where you can get that for sure, but I'm saying I think there could still be a little bit of doubt about maybe he does have it for defensive posturing. And
why would he have attack vehicles for defensive postures? I mean, he could have it. Defense is great. There's a lot better defensive weapons out there than stealth bombers and attack helicopters. Those really aren't that great for defensive weapons. You want to defend yourself, fine. Set up barricades.
No,
set
I
up
mean,
tanks
but
and
even
everything like
reactionary, right?
Right.
Like Pearl Harbor happens, and America doesn't just go with defense. The offense then becomes the thing in reaction to the
that.
attack.
Right.
So
He
could be doing it for
that's
that.
That's where I'm saying, like, if
And
we want to do more so that, you're trying to claim the flag's not evil by instantly obliterating an opposing city for trying to gather information. I mean, Flagg knows what they're going for. We know that. He knows that they're coming for information. He knows they're not coming to sabotage. I mean, for God's sakes, Dana worked on the freaking repair crews for the lights.
Yeah,
like she was putting up light bulbs in the street.
And he let her get into the
spot
inner
was
circle.
Lloyd. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He knew what he was going to do with her. He knew that she was never going to make it back to Boulder. There was no diplomacy there by Flagg or anything. He knew what he was going to do from square one. He had this plan laid out. He explains it to Lloyd in the prison. We got a lot to do. We got to get down there to Vegas and get this set up and get this going, because he was hoping to have planes and tanks in Boulder before the snow fell, and that didn't happen.
I think there's, like I said, I think that's what most people's view is. I think there's a few assumptions in there, though, is all I'm saying. I think that the assumptions about like the destruction of Boulder and stuff, like I feel like a lot of what we hear with that comes after the spies, and it just makes me think, so like, again, yeah, it may be only for information, but like, isn't that the classic excuse with spies? It's like, well, yeah, we're not trying to figure out a way to overthrow your society. We're just trying to like get information. Like if like we got caught with spies in a country, so, like in real life, all we would say is we're just there to keep our eye on things, or like that's what we would say. We wouldn't be like, yeah, we're looking to overthrow you, Canada. Like that's not what, So I would just say that would be a likely excuse. But again, all this, and that's why I built it the way I did, because I feel like a lot of this comes down to they're all trusting the word of Mother Abigail, and a lot of their assumptions past that are all based on that, and it could have put them in a position to where they're acting antagonistic in a way, kind of what do you call it? Poking the bear.
Poking the bear.
For some reason, it was something bee oriented.
Well, the one thing that I have a hard time swallowing is with your analogy of U.S. and modern day and stuff like that. Well, the problem is that we know that Canada's there. We know they're there. We know what kind of government we have. We know who their prime minister is. We've met the guy. We've seen pictures of him and everything like that. The one thing to remember here with Boulder is that they don't know. They just have dreams. So
yeah.
So you're damning them for jumping to conclusions for the dreams, believing the dreams, but then you're also damning them for trying to find out the truth and information there. What were they supposed to do? Walk someone into their town as a diplomat and explain the situation to Flagg?
I mean,
they suspect the same thing would have happened to him.
They suspect, though.
No, exactly. That's my point, is that the dreams, while true, gave them that fear that if they sent someone over there, they were just going to be slaughtered.
Yeah.
So in the mode of self-preservation and protecting the people who are sent, they send them in undercover to hopefully get them back with information so that they know, for sure of their suspicions. They don't look before jumping. They're looking before jumping. That's the idea. While Flagg, on the other hand, is building up an invasion army. And he says that later on. I want to kill every single person in Boulder. He has almost a direct quote saying that.
There is a point, though, that he's very angry talking about the destruction of them, and one of the reasons he points to is, teach them to send spies. Like, he is legitimately pissed off by that.
Yeah,
so
he's legitimately pissed off about that. But again,
what I would say, I guess, is, if I'm going to point the finger back at Boulder, is they're setting themselves up to replicate the government that was before the flu.
Right.
If that was the case, especially in that time period, why didn't they send a diplomat? Even though that could have been dangerous, it could have led to the person's death. But then at that point, they would have crystal clear knowledge. Yes, somebody's going to die, but they already thought they were sending 3 people to their deaths. Why not send one, waving their arms in the air?
White flag.
Not being secretive. Yeah, hey, we want to talk, figure out what's going on here. We've had dreams. We know people are going there. I don't even know how beyond the dreams and Mother Abigail, how do they even really know about Vegas? Maybe that's the only reasons.
That's the only reason. We don't. Well, they had people break off from groups.
Yeah, but
everything.
But a lot of it comes down to like whispers and
there was one
rumors,
person.
right?
There was one person. I can't remember who it was. I think maybe it was Larry's new woman, where they met a man who had like 3 women and a child.
No.
And they're like, you want to come with us?
Yeah.
To Nebraska. They're like, no, we got business in the desert.
Yeah. No, was there someone that came from Boulder, from Vegas, and kind of adds to like the rumor mill? I'm trying to remember someone that's like, they got the lights on or something, or is it always just speculation? For some reason, I was thinking that maybe there was someone that jumped from Vegas to Boulder.
No, I think the Mother Abigail is the one that tells them that they already have the lights on in Vegas.
Okay.
And when you look at, everything that happens, that's where, we kind of got to suspend, like the logical thinking of, like what me and you would do.
Yeah.
If we were put into that situation, because things do change. And that's the thing with the Stand, is that all of a sudden there is this presence of God, and there's this presence of,
the supernatural,
the supernatural divine intervention,
like levitating.
Well, it's just like if you took us and threw us into a horror film. Okay, well, there is no Freddy, there is no Michael. This is not real. And then I see him get shot 17 times and sit back up. Okay, suspend that disbelief, or I'm gonna fucking die. That's the same thing that we kind of got to forgive the Boulderites for doing that. Is that while they are just believing Mother Abigail and believing their dreams, they have good reasons for that. At the same time, and the thing that I always go back to with Flagg is that the way he reacted to the judge's death so dramatically that he wasn't just disappointed, he was fucking outraged that the person shot the judge in the head, because he wanted to make a statement then and there. And if that was going to be the end of it, fine. If he wanted to be left alone, like he claims with Dana, and that's where I think that a lot of people will take that as face value, is that Flagg's like, oh yeah, we just want to be left alone. But his actions say differently. And what he says to Lloyd says differently. And that's where I always take it, is that that's the truth. The stuff he was saying to Dana, and the stuff where we can say, oh, well, he was just protecting his people from the spies that were... No, he fully intended to wipe out every single man, woman, and child in Boulder, period.
Yeah, and like I think I've always agreed with you up until like this last time reading through, though, because like I feel like the timing of it, it's like we don't really get a lot of that until after the spies, to where I wonder, like, could that be the thing that antagonized him into those actions, and maybe he just wanted to be the most powerful tribe. Like, let's just assume the whole world's going to be specked with tribes. Mm-hmm. Maybe he just wanted to be the most powerful and kind of the like walks off but carry a big stick type mentality, but then when the spies happened, then that turned. That's just the thing that entered my mind with my last read. I'm not even saying that I would have had that if we would have done this thing 8 months ago before I had read it again. I don't think I would have had the same thought process. But as I read it again, it's because I started paying a little bit more attention to like, how is this unfolding? What is Flagg saying, and when is he saying it, and aligning it with the timeline of events. And I think like when it comes to like also looking at like the people, I guess the difference of the people, where they talked about, I can't remember who it was, maybe it was Mother Abigail, that talked about how a lot of the engineers and the specialty people would have gone to Flagg.
It was Glenn,
because they wanted it was in the amphitheater.
It's Glenn with Stu when they do their like morning discussion
in the amphitheater,
where Stu flips open his book. He's like, tell me how it is. It's Glenn that makes a lot of the assumptions, and Glenn's the one that started this all back in New England, where he says, look, it's very simple. And he breaks it down that there is going to be a group that is going to be more technologically advanced and have better weapons, and they're going to be far more aggressive. It's going to be that way. So it kind of
we can lay it at him then.
We could also lay it on him.
To planting that idea of antagonistic, both in the mind of the readers plus in the mind of the people of Boulder. But I guess the point I would point out is, okay, so you do, and we kind of see that play out a little bit. You get your law enforcement, you get your technological people. Like, they're way ahead of Boulder in terms of like getting the electricity on, getting food, like just in general, they're quicker at it because the people that Boulder have are a little bit more salt of the earth. You got your farmers, you got your, you got like your musician and stuff, but like overall it's a different swath of people. Yeah. And it makes me think that like, does that add to, again, like that first statement, I didn't do it to be like throwing barbs, but when I said they're taking the words of a religious fanatic, like I would say in a lot of ways Mother Abigail has shown, especially like when you start looking at her past, where she like got rid of like in preparation, like she ends up finding out like, oh yeah, God told me this because it would eventually lead me to being okay after the grid falls down or whatever. But from the perspective of you're in that world and some of the stuff you see from her, she seems a little bit more of a religious fanatic than not. And it just makes me think that like the people that tend to go to her are people that would maybe more align with like that kind of thing. And then I guess what it comes down to for me is like, does that put into a position where you got like the church versus scientist premise a little bit. You got people that are a little bit more religiously aligned that are like, expecting evil from the little bit more advanced. And I will give you, they don't know a lot about what's going on, so I don't want to give too much, but like
that's where you got to draw that fine line, though, is that you're throwing all this doubt onto Mother Abigail and casting all shade at her for being, a religious fanatic and everything like that. But still, at the same time, on the other side is not just scientists and the technology people. I mean, there was a fucking dictatorship ruled by one man setting the rules not agreed upon by the society, and they were crucifying people.
Okay.
So, I mean, at the same time, you can take it at the same thing. I mean, we got mad kings all throughout history. Well, I mean, what was it? Is it King George in England that would just start executing wives because he couldn't get divorced? I mean, at the same time, we got someone who's executing people for using drugs, which me and you both have very similar views on drug use and everything like that. It's like, what, if they're adults, fine. The war on drugs is something that's crippling America. We both have that standpoint. But to execute them because you don't like drugs because it lowers productivity. That's literally what they say, is that drug use is outlawed because it lowers productivity. That's very, very... Well, I can't even think of a better comparison. That's a very Nazi way of thinking. Is that if it's not for the greater good, comrade, mein Führer, kill him.
All right, it actually gets into my last point for the stand, so that's great. You led me right into it.
You're welcome.
And the point I put on is Law and Order, and I'll just go through kind of my answers because it's funny because I put these as ones I'd put to you almost in expectation of these getting brought up because, yeah, I mean, you got to know the topic and maybe assume what the other person might go after a little bit. But what I put is Law and Order. I says it may not appeal to our modern sensibilities. And this actually gets to something that we've talked about before, but in a post-apocalyptic world, is it not foolish to expect to carry over the pleasantries of a pre-plague society? Think about what I've told you. If like the what ifs we played 10 years ago was apocalypse, I would basically have put myself in a role of a dictator because that's the way to keep people safe. I told you that in a group. It's like, if you don't want to listen, fine, leave. But we're, here we got to go by a certain set of rules to survive. So I guess that would be like, a thing where that's the first point of what I have here is, Boulder is holding on to like, let's be the way we were before. And Glenn even brings up, is that the right thing to do? Like, why are we going down the same path? And I would say that like, it's like, just like we can't, like if we had time machines, you couldn't necessarily take our society the way it is now and go back to like the Dark Ages and apply it and expect it to take, because it's a different reality. Overall. So I guess that's what I'd say is like that's almost the same thing. Like once you hit post-apocalyptic, whether it's Mad Max or it's zombies or it's this, like you lose all of the things that kind of like all the pillars that the society stands on. So it's like, can you try to apply the rules of society still not having those pillars? That's the question I have, I guess.
Well, see, the problem I have with that assumption is that you're assuming that society's gone and can never be rebuilt. And that's what Boulder is striving for, is to rebuild America. They may be the only ones trying to do that in the entire country, and it may be only a small portion of the land that it used to be. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that, 99% of the world died. Well, let's just throw all the rules out the window, and one person's going to take over, and whatever he says goes. And I just have to assume that I like that. Otherwise, I'm going to be cast out. I'm going to be exiled for thinking differently. Well, I agree with you in a zombie apocalypse. I agree with you in a zombie apocalypse, but that's a different situation.
Is it though?
It is, because there's an existential threat.
But isn't there here? Like I said, that you could have raiders. You could have.
To what? I mean, like you have the people that try to kill Glenn, Harold, Fran, and Stu. Right. You're going to have people like that. But also, what about starvation? What about? I mean, because losing all the norms of life. That's kind of like what I would say is the in this circumstance would replace the zombies. Is like, no, you can no longer go and get a tetanus shot. You can no longer just go to a grocery store when you're hungry. Like, so I would say maybe it's not as much of a direct like, I'm gonna bite you and turn you into a zombie, but this is still a world now that doesn't have the same the guy with the appendix.
Yeah, you got that whole chapter, but also like if you're going to like leave Flagg or leave Boulder and just go off on your own down to Mexico, like we know some characters do. There's a huge danger there because who knows who the fuck's down there and what kind of tribe they run, but also between here and there, like You know, that's a long walk with a lot of desert, so I would say that would be the equivalency of why, in my mind, it's the same as a zombie thing, because you've lost. I guess that's the cool thing with zombies that people cling to, is it's kind of like you remove society, and it's like almost like the dreaming of what you would do without society around. It's kind of like the whole Fight Club like perspective, and it just makes me think like it's the same idea, I guess.
Well, that's where I'm strongly disagreeing, is that you're saying that because society's gone and because the world went through a change, that it can never be brought back. And I don't agree with that. We had the Romans who had a republic. It went away with the Dark Ages, but a republics have returned to the earth.
Hundreds and hundreds of years later.
Right.
Though.
I'm not saying that it's not going to take time. I'm not saying that it's not going to be an effort.
Yeah.
But I'm saying let's not just throw all the progress out the window and instantly go back to a dictatorship who executes people because he doesn't like what they do.
But you do, though. I mean, when it comes down to like the Dark Ages, right? You didn't go into like lesser republics. You went back to like feudalistic, like
monarchs. And there's a reason it's called the Dark Ages, because there was no enlightenment. There was no progress. We have learned from that. So to throw ourselves back to that is idiotic.
But no, what I'm saying is it natural to do that, though? Is that going to happen? Because you can't go from 0 to 100 right away, so you're going to kind of have to go through the motions again to rebuild your, just like in real history.
Like what Boulder's doing. And that's the thing, is like, you look at Boulder and you look at the people who went there. Yeah, there was crime there. There was someone, vandalizing, stuff like that. But what happened to him when he sobered up? Oh, God, why didn't someone stop me? Like he realized what he did was wrong.
Doesn't he end up dying too?
He ends up getting killed when the power comes back on. He doesn't kill himself or anything like that or hurt anyone. Yeah. He gets killed when something explodes and a piece of glass comes and decapitates.
But it's the question that comes down to that they bring up. I can't remember who, but it's when they were trying to get Stu to become the sheriff. It comes down to a thing. It's like nobody wanted to step up. No
one wanted to stop.
It's a common.
They didn't feel like they had the authority, is how they put it.
Yeah. So it comes down to a thing where like the argument could be made: is it safer than in Vegas, assuming you play by the rules? If you're a junkie that's gonna like that, and I'm not saying that in a derisive way, but if you're a junkie that's addicted to drugs, then maybe Vegas isn't the place to go.
No, but that's my point, is that while I agree with you, drug use and everything like that in a post-apocalyptic world, why? You got enough problems. Don't get high to do.
Which is right
where
we're at with Eddie too.
Right,
Roland's basically telling him
exactly,
that's behind you.
Like behind you. Yeah, exactly. You're in a different world now. Let it go.
Yeah,
and I'm with you on that. But my point is simply, why do the people not get a say in Vegas? I mean, how many people disagreed with the executions? Like they point that out in the book, that people disagreed with them, and that's where it got to the point. I mean, there was no trial. There was no innocent until proven guilty. The guy never had a chance to speak to him for himself and everything like that.
Totally. They're not trying to rebuild America for sure. And I'll fully admit that. They're not trying to recreate America whereas Boulder is. I totally get that.
And that's where I have a huge problem with that, is that, okay, we're just going to go down to executing people. And then, I mean, look at how Flagg treats Larry, Glenn, and Ralph.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to straight up pull them to pieces in front of people to make an example for what you just said they should have done in the first place, is sending emissaries.
Yeah.
They have no idea they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing there.
Yeah, but it's a totally different thing, because now you're in a spot where the antagonization, if you accept my theory, whether you do or not, I'm saying for argument's sake, you accept my theory that the spies is what caused the antagonistic thing. At that point now, with those guys coming, it's obviously a little bit of a different ball. It's like one of those, like, you can't come as a friend. Like if first
after you've already kicked me in the shin. Exactly.
And that actually brings up a good point that I was kind of thinking in my head too, is like what it comes down to with like the Mother Abigail, listening to her, and the dreams, which you mentioned, but now you're also talking about Flagg, to see that it applies to both. I guess one of my big arguments would be is that reacting in fear, because when he is going to destroy the two people, I guess, actually not three, I always think three, but because what's his name gets killed in the jail, so he's not even there. But when he's going to draw and quarter the two, right? Yeah. It's all because of fear. Like he's very fearful of those three people because he doesn't know what was told to them. He doesn't know, like, because he knows so much, and there's like that aspect of the unknown there, which is almost like, it's weird because it mirrors the unknown that Boulder has with Vegas. Like, so what I guess maybe at the root of it all, people reacting in fear are liable to do something that is not the right thing to do. on both sides. Like, fear should never be the thing that drives you. That goes back into real history too, the McCarthy era and stuff. Like, there's some horrible things that people have done under the guise of fear. So like, it's just weird until you brought up that the Flagg thing. Then I remember, like, he was fucking terrified at that point.
He was, and because he couldn't understand why they would walk to him. Why would they come willingly?
Yeah, what the hell are they doing?
He knows they know what I want to do to them.
Yeah.
At this point, they know what I want to do to them. Why are they coming so willingly? And I get that he's scared and everything.
Yeah.
Like that. But my problem is that it's not like he got off on the. You know, it can't put all the blame on Boulder for sending spies. Vegas was set up long before Boulder. Fine. Why didn't they send out the first emissary? Why aren't they reaching out and extending an olive branch, saying, "Hey, we're going to do our thing. You do your thing. Here's our border. Don't cross it." Fine. They don't exactly set it on parameters, and then all of a sudden they can act defensive and say, "Well, you sent spies at us." Well, yeah. What did you do? You're building up a military and creating a border while we're having nightmares about your leader executing people by crucifixion, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
One of the most painful ways to be executed in history.
Now here's the thing I would bring up about the crucifixion. I knew that would be a topic for sure. Is that all I would say again is it's kind of the post-apocalyptic argument a little bit is that the we've evolved a lot. Like, let's just go back 100 years in society.
Yeah.
You know, you had the guillotine still, you had
you had the guillotine 50 years ago.
You had hangings, you had
firing squad,
electric, like
beheading.
Yeah, like you had a number of pretty things that today we would call ghastly.
Archaic.
Yeah, ghastly things. And I guess the interesting thing, I mean, so you have to remove some of those from options, like the electric chair. I guess lethal injection was kind of a thing back in the day, that not when it was originally written, but in the 90s at least.
Yeah.
But when King rewrote it, he wouldn't have had access to that. All I would say is that
they mentioned lethal injection in.
Oh, that's right. That's
Larry's
right. That's
gonna
right.
get
Lloyd.
Yeah, sorry, wrong L word. He's gonna get lethal injection. His lawyer points it out.
No.
He's gonna get it.
It's the Ride the Lightning, because that's where Metallica got the name for their record.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you're right. It is the electric chair.
Yeah.
So it's pre lethal injection.
Yeah, so the only thing I throw out there, and I don't even necessarily say I fully agree with it, but post-apocalyptic, you remove the niceties of the world, and what it comes down to is almost that thing, like, from the history perspective. We've had the same teachers that have mentioned this, that one of the worst things you could do while looking at history is using your modern sensibilities to judge the past,
right? Because
they don't have the same understanding you do. And all I would say is that if you remove, like, kind of our bias of, like, what we view things should be like, and this comes from personally someone that I don't even believe in the death penalty. So this is all obviously in the fictional look at things. But what I would say is that overall, we're in the minority during our period now. The crucifixion's been done for longer than America has existed. You know, so it's one of those things that, like, yeah, it is painful. It's a public thing. It's
a form of execution designed to make the person suffer. And that's my point, is that if you're going to try and argue that crucifixions have been around forever, well, yes, I get it. So is beheading, so is drawn and quartering. Yeah, they've all been around for a while.
Dark Ages of drawing and quartering.
But that doesn't mean that in a post-apocalyptic world you can't shoot someone. I mean, they do it to Glenn. They shoot the guy. Fine.
Yeah.
You want to execute Larry and Ralph? Okay, take them out back and shoot them.
Yeah.
You want to shoot them in front of people? Fine. Cut their heads off, anything like that. But the fact that they're trying to make it a public spectacle to put fear into their citizens' hearts just shows how backwards that society was developing into.
What I would say, or primitive, because our society was the same. We had public executions early on. Hangings were done out in the open. Like, it was a thing. Up again, it's one of those things. There was a
hardcore history about it recently, wasn't there?
Yeah, painful tainment or whatever you call it. But I guess what I would say is that we're talking like the last 100 years is the only point in history that public execution wasn't a thing. So who's to say that it's not one of those, like, hey, look what happened the last couple 100 years or 100 years. It hasn't been good. So let's go back to the way things have been done for thousands of years. Like, I'm not even saying again that I would argue that personally, like if it was a zombie apocalypse, like I wouldn't be necessarily advocating for that. But I'm just saying from the perspective of someone living at that time, maybe that are in this world.
Oh, come on. We all know that in a zombie apocalypse, there's only one way to execute someone if you have it. And that's a pit of zombies. You just lower them down in there, and that's it. Let them take care of the mess.
Yeah.
We're done. That's the only way to execute someone in a zombie apocalypse. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'm a good guy, but still, even me would be like, all right, bad guy, hog tie him, put him down, Let him enjoy that.
So I have one last point, and it's kind of under this Law and Order heading. Is what I'd say is is what I have written down is even the free zone by the end of the book is turning into a police state. That is the reason Stu wants to leave. To my last point, I'm not saying that this is bad given the circumstances, because you can't hold on to sensibilities. I'm just saying that let's not pretend that Boulder is some bastion of virtue, because by the end, and it's not even that long, it's less than a year, or maybe it's just over a year, right around a year, they're already turning into a police state where they have way more cops than everyone's comfortable with. They're armed, like, and Stu mention like the danger of that. Like eventually this could turn into just like, or is that the original argument for sheriff, is that he didn't want to do it because eventually you could lead to a thing where
that was his original argument for sheriff, because that it would be the ball starting rolling down the hill.
Yeah.
But at the end you say that it's a police state, but it's not. The police don't have the ultimate power. In the very chapter that you're speaking about where Stu's talking about wanting to leave, the guy who took over as sheriff when Stu got hurt is petitioning to have more deputies and to arm them after one got thrown through a plate glass window by a drunk. That doesn't mean that they have the power to do it, though. They may eventually, it may develop into a police state. I would give you that argument. But it is not a police state.
Well, what I said is it's turning into a police state.
I wouldn't say that
it's going down that turn, and that's why Stu wants to leave. Like, I feel like Franny, obviously, it's her thing. She wants to leave, but I feel like with Stu was kind of the thing that would be harder to pull, especially being a I don't know. I mean, you're talking the sheriff, you're talking the dude that chairs the thing. Like he's a big deal in it all. He's kind of the Washington maybe. But for him, it's his uncomfort with that element that makes him be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be here anymore.
His large discomfort was with who the person was in charge of the police force, because he was a bruiser, beat first, ask questions later, shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's instantly going to go, to a police state in full. I mean, the thing was that they still had a committee. It wasn't abolished to have a police state running things and everything. And I think that's where we get back to, that's part of the reason why Stu and Franny left, is because it made them uncomfortable. And, that goes back to what we were talking about. Good. They should have been able to have that choice. People in Vegas had to slink away in the night. They didn't have that choice. Flagg says he's going to let them go, but was punishing certain people for standing up to him and saying, no, this isn't how we should do things. I mean, come on, we're Americans. That guy that was a cop that I really believe that Larry got to him. What was it, Santa Monica, Santa Barbara?
Yeah.
One of the Santas from California.
Yeah.
He got to him, and then Flagg's like, I was going to let you go. Yeah, but now I have to punish you for speaking out against me. I mean, for God's sakes, Flagg's trying to take away one of the most basic human rights that America was founded on.
Yeah.
That just kind of screams to me, whoa.
Yeah, but
and the reasoning saying that it's a post-apocalyptic world, I'm sorry, I don't buy that. Post-apocalyptic world shouldn't mean that in a zombie apocalypse I may disagree with you, but I should at least still have my say if I'm going to be part of your group and explain my reasonings. Maybe you're not seeing things from my side. You're not just going to instantly pull me out and shoot me in the leg and leave me for dead for the zombies because I disagree with you. You're going to say what you said. Okay, well, this is the way we're going to do things. But if you don't like it, there's the door.
But it does come down to, like, they have the same issue with, like, the dude that they know is just lining himself up to be a politician. It's not toward the end, but it's a little bit more toward the last.
He's setting himself up to be on the next committee.
None of them like it. They're trying to like hold him out. They hold Harold out and stuff. I guess my argument kind of with this is that it's slinking towards a police state, but also even when you start looking at some of the things that they do as the committee, it's very behind closed doors, the worst parts of America, not the best parts of America. So they kind of present the picture of idealism, but they're not really following it in a lot of ways. They're kind of rigging votes a little bit. They're, whatever. They're kind of, they're gaming the system early, and as it is maybe turning what might become a police state, that's where it just is all I'm saying is like the whole not being quote unquote real American, not feeling like we were before the flu. I would say that Flagg and Boulder are both that way. I mean, and even Boulder, they set themselves up as like a New England committee type, which is not even really the model for most. Like, it's completely unfamiliar to me living here in Utah. I've never heard of such things. Like, you have like maybe a city council, but you're always going to have like your mayor and you have
governor.
You have a governor larger. You have like a sheriff that's an elected official and stuff so it's I would say that there's points, but there is points where you you have to be somewhat troubled. And I'm like a nerd for like I don't know what you'd call it, like within history, like politics and how things happen, like the fall of the Roman Empire and things like that. And when you look at some of this stuff, like the arming and growing of police is usually not a good sign for a society. Usually that is what predates like a police state and stuff. And I think that's where my point comes from, is not that there are a police state, but that there's some of the signs are there where it's like, I would probably leave it if I was there in Boulder. Once, like, if that passed, it was like suddenly there's like 10 times more cops and they were all armed, I'd be peacing out, because that's just like, I don't know, it's scary. It's one of those things you got to be careful of. So that was my last. Let me Yeah. It could have turned into a fascist society. That was the last thing what I said, is the police state could eventually turn into a fascist society, and they may end up being the same thing as Vegas. Maybe they're just behind the curve. Like Vegas happened quicker.
What it was is that it's that, workflow kind of thing where it's like, do you want to have a republic, society? Yes. Do you want to have elected officials? Yes. Do you want to have law enforcement? Yes. And then all of a sudden it circles back to like what you're talking about with Flagg.
Yeah.
I get it. Because that part, I'm 100% in agreement with that, but that's not the discussion here. It's not. Well, no, the discussion is not whether or not Boulder or Vegas is good or bad. The discussion is whether or not Flagg is good or bad.
No, I know. I'm just using it as context of like, because I feel like the structure of things in Vegas is one of the primary things to use to show that Flagg, is not good. I would say that there's just as much to show that Boulder, between being based on fear and like the religious side of things from Mother Abigail, and then the fact that some of the things they're doing to kind of game the system, I think there's just as much to be concerned about there, to where it's not like which is good king writing. It's not just like your like 1950s movie where you have like your white hat and black hat. I would say, if nothing else, you at least have to say there's gray hats involved here.
No, the big thing there that you're missing is you're comparing the societies and putting all the blame on the leaders, saying that, well, maybe Flagg's not as bad because look, Boulder is just as bad. But no, the difference there is that Flagg had planned to commit murder from the get-go. I mean, that he says that, when he talks to Lloyd in the prison and everything like that.
I think he says they have a lot to do.
He has full intentions of killing people. You get his backstory when he's walking the streets of the street in Nevada, the road, where he's committed atrocities already and everything like that. And then you're comparing the Boulderites, saying that they're just as bad as him. You want to know the one difference there? They don't agree with everything that they're doing. Look at how Fran just flat out refuses to vote yes in one of the matters. She says she questions the spies. A couple of them question the spies.
Yeah.
They actually have a conscience. They actually are thinking good and bad. There are going to be cause and effect here. They understand that, and they understand that sometimes it's for the greater good. That's different, though, with Flagg. The way Flagg treats things it's Charles Manson running a friggin' community. He may have some good ideas, but he's still freaking insane and committing atrocities over here. I mean, he rips someone apart with his hands and teeth, for Christ's sake. He's a bad guy.
No, that's the dude that shoots the judge, right?
Yeah, he like tears him apart.
I guess like if we stay in the context of nobody really knows that happened, most likely in the story. Right. That's like kind of But I mean, as readers, we see that obviously.
Exactly, and that's the thing is like I can understand where you want to take it as a context and have it like the geopolitical debate about which society was more flawed and everything like that. But again, it all boils back down to the original question. Was Flagg the bad guy on the stand? Yes, absolutely he was. He was out to commit genocide against a group of people because they differed in ideals than him. And that's the simple fact, is that, I'm sorry, I can't abide by saying that someone who's going to commit genocide is a good guy.
And I would say like it's a response to antagonization, and the villain of the stand is the government that created the super flu to begin with, and everything past that is just your base level, like you said, geopolitical thing of like it only focuses on two, but like if it would have been maybe a wider book, maybe you would have seen multiple establishments.
The Stand Part 2 in Soviet Russia, communism finds you.
Especially when it was originally written, it would have been during the Soviet era instead of the.
It would have been after the Cold War.
No, when it was originally written in the 70s.
Oh, that's right, because he wrote it. We talked about this when we did our Stand things, that we actually looked that up. Did we bring that up on the book club or after the fact on the next roundtable, where the Stand was updated for?
We did it in the Unfound Door
for the 90s, right?
Yeah, and they updated some of the pop culture things. So
pop culture, and then also like the presidents and stuff.
Like the Reagan, because I remember bringing that up in one of our things, and I was just like,
you're like, wait a minute,
yeah, like how are they referencing Reagan? He wasn't president when King wrote this.
Yeah, exactly.
So now we can move over to the Dark Tower. That was just a fun little, I don't know, jaunt into the stand. So now with the Dark Tower,
we're going to take a break with the Flagg Summit. We'll be back after these messages. Flagg is the bad guy.
If it wasn't such a chaotic last couple of weeks, I wish I could have found like some like cheesy like political type music to play. Yeah, just something for like an intro. I had thought about it, but man,
what we should have done is we should have got Chris on to record some sound bites. I'm Chris, your moderator today for tonight's debate. The questions will be handled by Tad in pro flag and Peter in negative flag, anti flag.
Oh man,
I'm very anti flag, by the way.
Yeah, I think I've noticed. So now as we jump over to the Dark Tower, I feel like a lot of the points I have, I guess.
So this is where we got to go back to what I was saying is that there is a big reason why you think Flagg is not the antagonist of the Dark Tower series. Is not. Wait, did I say that right? Antagonist is the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Antagonist of the Dark Tower
I always
series.
remember it because antagonize is like what you do to like a little brother or something.
What you do to me. Hashtag Tad is evil. Tad is terrible.
And you are younger, so, like...
by 2 months. Shut the hell up.
No, I'm just saying, so if we were brothers, you would be the younger brother.
By 2 months. Shut the hell up.
I don't know how that works, really.
But I have kids, so I'm wiser in years.
Yeah.
Isn't that how it works, right?
I have a much bigger beard, so...
So?
Everyone knows knowledge comes from a beard.
Oh, get the hell out.
Find me a great philosopher of old that doesn't have a beard. Sir.
Einstein.
Of old. Like what's the... Like Greek and like Socrates and... like
Leonardo da Vinci didn't have a beard.
He's a painter.
He's a philosopher. Shut the fuck up. Get the fuck out of here. You serious?
He's a painter and an inventor.
Yeah, and philosopher too.
Oh, all right. So
I'm gonna look up old ancient philosophers. I'm gonna go find a list of the motherfuckers that didn't have a long beard.
Oh man, too bad neither of us can lean on the whole glasses thing.
Yeah. Well, I have glasses. I just wear my contacts right now.
That's why it doesn't count.
So, I can pop those out if you want.
All right. So yeah, basically, and this is like kind of the first portion of it would be kind of where the realization for me was going through our book club for the first book.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to the Golgotha and I pose this question to Peter, is that when we got to it, it's like, wait a minute, what Flagg is telling Roland here is literally what he needs. Knowing the larger, we didn't say it in the book club. Then it would have been
you brought it up on the round table after
the round table, because it comes down to the ending.
You seriously, I literally saw Tad have this epiphany, like almost on screen, or like his eyes lit up because he realized he really wanted to talk to me about this. Because
but then we couldn't
because there's the book club and we don't go past where we are in the books. And so he's like, after we got off the air that day, I remember you're like, I got a subject for next book, for next roundtable.
Yeah.
I'm like, you going to tell me about it? He's like, no, I want to see your natural reaction. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Like normal.
But what it comes down to is what Flagg tells Roland, knowing the whole story and knowing like Roland's curse, what Flagg's telling him would legitimately bring the end of that curse. So it was like, wait, how the fuck does that work? Like, okay, him just running and being chased and whatever, like maybe setting traps, like that's one thing. But then suddenly when you get to him and suddenly you're basically telling Roland like the way to break this, and that just really opened it up for me and like a Hydra almost, where it just like spread with multiple heads and stuff. Because then it started to like apply to like all the different things that we do see, and it's just like, and that's what really got me. In a lot of ways, it really opened up Flagg to a more deep character for me, where it's like, wait a minute. So he knows about the cycles. So he's fucking aware of the cycles, which is got to be torturous, right? Like living the same things over and over, like Groundhog Day, and being conscious of it. Because Roland,
there's debates about that. There's a debate about that.
No, because he tells Roland about things that once you connect it and you've read it and you go through and reread that Golgotha again, there's things he says that's very well like clear that he's like, yeah, I fucking know you've gone through this, who knows how many times.
Because someone tells him that Roland's gone through it multiple times does not mean that Flagg is outside the circle and stuck in hell for it. There's a big difference there between. And that's where I think that
No, I think it's torturous to be like in this cycle and
the
knowing
only
it.
one, well, no, and that's the thing is that you say that Flagg knows it, but I don't think that there's ever concrete proof that Flagg knows that. Because the one thing that I would say is that why doesn't he do things differently then?
But who's to say he doesn't? We don't know that. We only see the one cycle. So
2 cycles.
well, I mean, we see one cycle all the way through with like Flagg's
yeah, the
movements.
movie. The movie necessarily doesn't give us a second cycle, just a different retelling of a certain part of the
Yeah,
cycle.
I mean, I guess if you look at the movie, yeah, it's a different, and we do see a different, completely different thing from Flagg.
Roland meeting Jake and everything.
But we had debated even before the movie ever came out, and we saw that. Like that was my question to you: is it? And we talked about this on multiple levels. It's like, is it always Eddie and Susanna and Jake? Is it always going
to be the same Eddie, Jake, and Susanna from different worlds?
Yeah, are they from different
that's
worlds?
That's where we have massive debates. Is which Eddie is pulled, and I'm starting to wonder if it wasn't Eddie from Keystone Earth in this last cycle in the books. Because he makes a reference to The Shining, which means that Stephen King is a real person, but then later on, Stephen King is not a real person. So that's where it's like, wait a minute. It gets a little confusing there.
Yeah, it does. But I think that like what it comes down to though is like from my view, Flagg is some of the things he says, like death never for you, gun. Like there's things he says that's like very. It shows us that he doesn't, and that's where some of that is speculative in terms of like what does he do different every time, and we speculated that before the movie came out. So I'm like, maybe he does do something different every time. Maybe he's always trying new things, and this is just we only see the one, so there's really no way for us to know. I mean, again, unless you count the movie now, like where you count the movie in canon is whether that proves it or whether we're still without proof.
I would still go without it. For our summit, I'm going without it.
Yeah,
the movie. So,
but,
I mean, that makes more sense.
But ultimately, that's my theory, though, is that Flagg would try things differently each time and stuff, and that
the reason why is because your theory is that if Flagg stops Roland from gets Roland to choose to cry off the tower,
or if he kills him, which I will admit that is a potential for him, because again, I think that Flagg, if you were in that a cycle, because like Roland has the luxury of the amnesia. He doesn't remember it beyond a couple seconds. With Flagg, he doesn't. So if you had that and you were able to remember it all, I think that would be basically the worst kind of torture. And you would rather be dead than continue the cycle, basically so it might even be, even if they were connected in some weird way, which is again somewhat debatable, but we've brought up before, are they connected in a way? Like Roland's going through the cycle, is the connection of Flagg and Roland the reason that Flagg is going through it, but he's not. Like he isn't Roland, so he doesn't have the amnesia element. So that but he's like tethered to him, and so maybe he would rather even see the destruction of the entire universe to get himself out of it, or whether he'd rather see Roland dead, even if that meant himself dying, or whatever, just to get out of it all. Because I think even if he shot himself at the beginning, which maybe that would have been one of the things that he did when he realized it was cycling, like this is like some Dormammu stuff, but maybe he would have shot himself. But then when Roland refreshes to the next cycle, he would be back again. So he might even remember like shooting himself in the desert, like, fuck this, I'm not doing this shit again. But if he always comes back for the next one, that just means that he doesn't go through all the steps of the journey, but he still has to keep starting back up, So it's just like, I don't know. And that's what makes me wonder, like when he's at the Golgotha, is he telling Roland like what he needs to do to get out of it, because that's his way out? And is he doing things like Nort, and booby trapping Tull and stuff? Is he doing those things to stop the cycle? I guess that's kind of been my thought process over the last, I don't even know what that's been now, year and a half, somewhere in there, that we had that I had this epiphany, and that makes me think like, and that led into other things. I'm trying to think I can't remember if I wrote them down. I think that I didn't, so I'll get into it since I don't have it typed down for a future point. But like we got into the whole idea is Flagg playing a game like he's pretending to be part of the Crimson King's plan. I can't help but call this like the Darth Vader tactic. Vader in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi kind of has his own plan. Maybe he loses his heart for it.
He keeps trying to recruit Luke to overthrow the Empire.
Yeah.
The Emperor, because he knows the Emperor truly is evil.
Yeah.
And that's where, especially when you take out the expanded universe. Yeah. Where that's where, the Vader atrocities were confirmed with what he did to like the bodyguard planet. The ones that protect
But just in the films,
Thrawn.
films though, it's like he's trying to, he's trying to get Luke to overthrow him so that they would be in charge. So it's kind of like topple the king, right? To become the king.
And also when you look at Anakin in the first couple episodes, so this is kind of Star Wars talk here, is what you're talking about, is that
but no, I'm just
he's actually a really good guy. Like, he's looking to do good. He believes in the system. He says that in Attack of the Clones. And that's your example.
And even some of the why he falls is it's because the Jedi fall short of his standards of like what's supposed to be right. Like
what's right.
Like suddenly it goes from a trial to no, I'm just going to kill this motherfucker. And Anakin's like, wait, I've been fighting a war for a couple of years now, fighting for the ideals of this guy should be given a trial.
Yeah.
Like, there's, but I use it as an example of, is Flagg doing the same thing? Is he pretending to help the Crimson King, but maybe he's trying to, like, say he gets what he needs from Mordred to enter the tower himself. Is he going to let the Crimson King out, or is he going to go to the top of the tower himself? If he goes to the top of the tower himself, that's a betrayal of the Crimson King, and he's been playing his own game his whole time. That all stems out of this same thing of, like, if he's aware of this, maybe he has his own goals. Maybe his goal is just to get to the top of the tower, because maybe that's just like him rolling dice and going, well, Roland always gets to the top of the tower and we restart. What the fuck happens if I get to the top of the tower first? Like, you could assume maybe it's just like to become the god of the universe and do whatever he wants, or it could just be him just seeing like, hey, I've tried it at nothing, and let Roland do his thing, and it keeps happening the same way. So what happens if I do it? So it's kind of a snake or an octopus with all these different possibilities sprouting out of it, this idea. But it definitely came out a year and a half ago, and ever since then it's been kind of the basis of why I bring up a lot of this stuff. Is it's like
a lot of the things that you say for Flagg is not a bad guy obviously is based off around this, right?
Yeah, because what it comes down to is, like, you look at like all the minor players, right? They answer to Flagg, but it's through the purview of the Crimson King, right?
He does work for the Crimson King, and he absolutely confirms that in book 7.
But what I'm saying is like the vampires and the
low men,
the
Taheen.
Yeah, the Taheen. Like, they're all answering to Flagg, but not because Flagg is Flagg, but because Flagg works for the
He's
Crimson
the general
King.
of the Crimson King.
Yeah.
No, I got you. That's what I'm supporting.
Like if he would have just come out and went, fuck the Crimson King, like, almost everyone that supported Flagg would probably be against him.
Yeah.
So that's always my thought process. Maybe he's gaming the system to try to break this cycle, to get out of this loop, like this Dormammu loop. So that, I guess that's my one element of the larger perspective of the story as it unfolds, I guess.
I have a new theory.
All right.
And I actually have passages to back up my theory, so I want you to hear me out before we go much further, because the big thing that I wanted to focus on here was with your theory that Flagg is outside of the loops, so that he's aware that he's gone through this X amount of times.
Yeah.
However many times Roland's gone through it, Flagg has also been dragged through it, but he doesn't have the amnesia thing, is what you...
Yeah, slight pause. Do you think Roland's it's 19, or do you? Because I've always felt that it's like I've always
felt that it could be hundreds.
Okay, because it just seems more like fitting than 19. I get the 19 argument, but it's just too low for me.
It's too low for me
as
well.
Right,
I believe hundreds of times, which I believe would drive anyone insane if they were outside of it. And I look at Flagg, and he's not insane. And it kind of brought up a question the last time I went through the Dark Tower series. And I specifically saved it. I haven't talked to you about this.
As I was saying, and I will admit, too, I haven't had a chance to go through the Dark Tower series again. So even, like, I'm hoping that you have a lot from the Dark Tower, because I haven't been through it in a couple of years. So I'm glad that you have that, because I was starting to, like, look at my notes and going, shit, man, we're going to get through the Dark Tower, like, way quicker, because I have a lot more notes on the stand. But good, I'm glad you have.
No, I have things with this, and I think this is where I'm not trying to blow a hole into your theory, but I think
that's the idea, right?
I think I may tweak this, and I think you might agree with me on this when I point out a couple facts here. We're talking about Flagg being outside of the cycle, which is going to cause him to go insane. But he doesn't go insane, and he hasn't gone insane, and we're both on the same page that we think that it's been at least 100 times. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the one character in the books that did go insane?
The Crimson King.
Okay. Who is Flagg working for?
Potentially the Crimson King, at least in vision.
He's working for the Crimson King. At the start of book 1, he's working for the Crimson King. Passage here, when he confronts Mordred, that I want to read to you, that I think points that the Crimson King is outside of the cycle and giving information to Flagg.
okay.
to pass on to Roland. Because there's this line here. The king had told him then, this is after Magus. So let me go back and just start the paragraph over. He had seen Roland years earlier in Magus, and had just missed his grip on him there too. Parentheses. Although he put that mostly down to Elder Jonas, he of the quavery voice and the long gray hair, and Jonas had paid. End parentheses.
Hold on one second. Who's the he we're talking about here? Just
Flagg.
For my
Flagg.
Flagg saw Roland at Magus?
Flagg had seen Roland years earlier in Magus, yes.
Okay, hold on. Just small aside.
Mhm.
Does that not prove my point that Flagg is Farson as well? Because I still hold that Flagg is Farson.
It's a very good argument there. But
Or no, because Flagg appears as
Flagg
Flagg. Never
comes
mind.
as Flagg.
That's right.
To
That's
Magus.
right.
We never see Farson in the books.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. The king had told him then, Magus, right after Magus, that they weren't done with Roland. That the gunslinger would begin the end of matters, and ultimately caused the tumble of that which he wished to save, the Dark Tower. Walter hadn't begun to believe that until the Mohane Desert, where he looked around one day and discovered a certain gunslinger on his back trail, one who had grown old over the course of falling years, and hadn't completely believed it until the reappearance of Mia, who fulfilled an old and gray prophecy by giving birth to the Crimson King's son, Mordred. Certainly the old red thing was no more use to him, but even in its imprisonment and insanity, it was dangerous. Talking about Mordred still, okay?
Yeah.
Still, until he had Roland to complete him, to make him greater than his own destiny, perhaps, Walter O'Dim had been little more than a wanderer left over from the old days, a mercenary with a vague ambition to penetrate the tower before it was brought down. Was that not what had brought him to the Crimson King in the first place? Again, your theory proving right there.
Okay.
He was brought to the Crimson King. He came to the Crimson King just to penetrate the tower. That's it. He didn't really want to serve the Crimson King.
Yeah.
And it says right here, was that not what brought him to the Crimson King in the first place? ? Yes. And it wasn't his fault that the great scuttering Spider King had run mad. Never mind. Here was his son with the same mark on his heel. Walter could see it at this very moment, and everything balanced. Of course, he needed to be careful. The thing in the chair looked helpless, perhaps even though it was helpless, but it wouldn't do to underestimate it just because it looked like a baby. So I think with that, and with everything else that Flagg did throughout the Dark Tower series, I believe that Flagg was under the notion that he's going to climb the Dark Tower and get there before it's brought down. And how it's supposed to be brought down is the death of Roland. I think the Crimson King told him what to say in the Golgotha to Roland, knew that he was going to get caught there by that passage, and I think that the king, the Red King, is actually outside of the loop, and that's why he goes insane.
And I would agree that the Crimson King is outside of the loop. I think that's a given. I guess I've always assumed that, just since he's just outside of the tower, but in the tower, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Like that kind of puts him in that, like that he's in that
protective
the
realm,
nexus.
yeah, where it's not going to reset at the tower level. And I think that's where I wholeheartedly think that Flagg is acting under his own volitions to climb the tower. He wants to get to the top of the Dark Tower. It says it very clearly there in Book 7. That's all he wants. He doesn't care about anything else.
When you got with the Magus stuff, with like the Crimson King telling him stuff, the thing I'd point out is Magus is before the loop. So anything there, Flagg would probably be a little bit less maybe privy to things.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get to that opening line of the book, that's where the loop starts. Like we talked about, like the bubble wand, right?
Right.
So I think that like the Flagg I'm seeing of like that's kind of like maybe, and I don't know if I fully agree that he would go mad. Maybe he would like in terms of like insane, like babbling idiot, like the Crimson King, like mad in terms of like I need to fucking end this, like being like, I guess that's more what I see, like what people would see like a villain, like you're fucking mad, like a James Bond villain,
like that general in The Rock. It's a perfect example.
Yeah,
he's at the end of his rope. Okay, you're obviously insane,
but not like babbling idiot like the cat lady on Simpsons or the fucking Crimson King. Like
the Crimson King gets to that point though.
Yeah,
you agree with me on
absolutely.
that? Okay.
But I just don't think Flagg's mad in that realm. But I do think he's mad in terms of I need to fucking end this. Like this is fucking, But I would say that like in that, so like in Magus he may still need to be clued in by the Crimson King. But I think like once you're in the loop, which does count like the Golgotha and stuff, basically the books. I think that's kind of where my theory is that. So I would say that's a lot of supporting, maybe in some cases parallel, but maybe that at some point it crosses with those two. Like what you're saying, what I'm saying.
The one thing though that I want you to take away from that passage there is the important thing is where Flagg internal monologue with a thinking cap on, thinking that he's protected, is laying out your plan for you. He's not going to deceive the reader at this point. And he says that his only desire here is to climb the Dark Tower before it falls.
Yeah.
Can he become the god of all? He specifically says this later on. Can I become the god of all? Maybe.
Yeah.
And that's where I don't think that this is a mad person trying to break a loop that he's stuck in. I think this is a person who doesn't know he's in a loop, who's trying to obtain his dreams of climbing to the Dark Tower and becoming a god.
Yeah.
And that's where again, his actions will a bad guy for him.
Okay, but
same with like the Crimson King.
The one thing I would say is that that's like, I would say that's definitely a valid interpretation for sure. I would say though that like it's just as much an interpretation. He is visual of it, and perhaps going to try to mount the tower,
It's
like
the
like
way
I said,
of breaking
like,
it.
like that. Yeah, like every other one we've been through. Roland's got to the tower. You know, I've tried to kill him. I've tried this. I've tried that. But what I haven't tried yet until this period that the one that we're reading, the loop we read, is maybe I need to get into the tower first. And again, with Mia being, you know, like, what if Mia's another like difference? Oddity. You know, what if that's something that wasn't always there? You know, and suddenly when that is though, now suddenly he's like, well, now there's a fucking way for me to get inside the tower.
Right.
You know, maybe there's even times that he tried to like somehow like deceive it to where like he can get in while Roland has the door open. You know, like who knows? There could be any number of things. But then once Mia's there and Mordred's there, he's like, now I've got a fucking key that I could try to get in myself, mount the tower, and that even adds to my theory that this isn't just like, you know, can you become like the god of all? Well, I better fucking be. That's the whole point. No, it's like maybe, but like because that's not important.
If I become the god of all, I can stop this fucking
I could
loop.
stop it, yeah. But otherwise, it could just be maybe I see the door that goes into Mohita, and maybe I could stop it. Something. Maybe I could do something to like I don't know. So I think that it's definitely a different, and that is a really interesting interpretation too, and it's one that I've never thought of. But yeah, I don't think that it's like mutually exclusive with what I've got. I think they can live very close to each other, and it's just a difference of interpretation of kind of really, again, it's something that we can never know. So that's what I love about this.
Not unless we get Stephen King on the program, which I'm still waiting for you to do, by the way.
The thing is, though, do you think King, like, I don't know.
I honestly believe that if King came on, he would say 3 words to us. Flagg is bad, and then be done.
No, but in terms of like, if we got into like, I don't think he would like. It's like one of those like where like creators are asked like some deep thing about it, like because fans always think about things more than the creators.
Way
for sure.
more than the creators,
and it would just be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, it would just be
Flagg's just trying to get there to get power. Like, shut the hell up about this loop thing. Like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Roland's the only one stuck in the loop, and it would just be like, what?
Yeah,
that's where you get the freaking fanboys, like what you talked about in one of your episodes of the podcast. Spoiler alert! I'm going to spoil a little bit of one of Tad's episodes, where people got mad at Lucas for doing Lucas's vision for a film that Lucas made.
Yeah,
it's like fans do that to creators, and it pisses me off just as much as it pisses you off.
Yeah,
it's like, well, I think this character should be gay, and the author comes out and goes, thought about it. I don't think they. Well, how dare you? I think, fucker, I created this person, you know, like.
Yeah. At the same time, I think there is a benefit for a creator to kind of be as hands off as possible, unless it is something that's like deathly important. Like, yeah, if someone's interpreting a character as gay and you're still writing the series, but like at some point you want this person to marry in a heterosexual,
straight,
like
that's where you got to put your foot down. You're like,
then
this
you have
is still my creation.
But if it doesn't matter, I'm kind of the opinion. I mean, the author or the author, creator, whoever it is, has every right to say whatever the fuck they want.
Oh yeah, for sure.
From the fans' perspective of me that loves to get into this shit, like the whole reason for this podcast and this episode is I love it when they just keep their mouths shut, because I would rather have the openness of like interpretation and stuff. That's what I love about like waiting between movies, like with like Marvel and stuff. Like I would love to, you know, like just go crazy with like speculation. I guess that's the kind of stuff I love. So in some cases I love when the creators keep their mouths shut. If it's super important, they have to speak up, great, speak up. But if they speak up and they don't really have to, there's times where I'm just like, man, you just like close the door on something.
Why are you taking that away from me? Don't take that from me.
Like,
don't take that from me.
Yeah, at the same time, I don't want people in our position, I'm not okay with them forcing their views on like you know, like,
well, it's like
bad mouthing someone like, well, you don't believe this theory I've come up with, like, fuck you, you're a bad fan.
Yeah,
you know?
It's one of the reasons why me and you have both distanced ourselves from the expanded universe crowd, is that we were big fans of the expanded universe before the prequels and everything. And before the sequel series. You know, the episode 9's about to come out next year.
Yeah, with Star Wars.
With Star Wars, sorry. Yeah, with Star Wars. We were huge fans of the expanded universe, reading multiple books. We love the Thrawn trilogy, the Thrawn duology, as they're called. But then when The Force Awakens comes out, all of a sudden, all these fans rise up saying, this isn't our Star Wars. This isn't how it's supposed to be. And it's like, well, there was no definitive before.
Yeah.
Like, this was Lucas saying, yeah, play with it.
Yeah,
Like,
do whatever you want. Like,
here's my toy set. Play with it as you will.
yeah.
But then someone else owns that toy set now. And that's
Yeah.
where it's like the MCU. Not everything is the exact same as the comics. I mean,
Yeah.
Civil War is a perfect example. Civil War was the Accords in the movies. It was the Superhero Registration Act in the comics.
Yeah.
People died in the comics.
Yeah. And Peter reveals his identity, which
Peter
is a
Peter
huge
Parker
deal.
reveals his identity, which has never been done before for Spider-Man.
Yeah, that was a huge deal.
You know, except for characters like found out about him right. I mean, like the Norman Osborn one and like the Sam Raimi movies. I've heard that that's in the comics at some point.
At some point, yeah.
Someone finds out his identity and then bleh, dies.
At one
instantly.
point, freaking Doc Ock gets zapped another like thing
Into
Peter.
Peter.
Yeah.
And Peter gets zapped into Doc Ock.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, stuff like that has happened.
So then it's like, oh shit, Spider-Man's Peter Parker.
Oh shit, it's this kid? All right. I know this kid. Well, cool. I'm this kid now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like I'm wholeheartedly with you. If fans want to go crazy with their theories and everything like that, I'm all for that. I'm not trying to shut down your theory that Flagg's outside of the loop. It's honestly what came up from this one is that, well, if Flagg was supposed to go insane and it could drive him insane from that, well, wait a minute. There's only one insane character really in this book, and they talk about he's the fucking Mad King now.
Yeah.
Like he's fucking batshit crazy.
Mad King might be copyrighted, but
By who?
the dude that can't finish his books.
God.
Isn't the Mad King, right?
Oh
Game
yeah,
of
it
Thrones?
is the Mad King. Yeah, that's
Game of Thrones.
well, they call him the Mad King in that passage though, so that's what I'm going.
So Stephen King gets it because he wrote it first.
He wrote it first.
Or maybe not first though, because that's book
7?
no.
No.
There was a
The
number.
Song of Ice and Fire
Yeah.
came out long before book 7 did.
Yeah, that was like in I think in the 90s or something. So.
Long time in between those books.
Yeah, exactly.
A longo time.
Yeah,
I'm with you on the Flagg theory. I don't discredit it. I don't throw it out the window. Every time I listen to the series, I get another piece that either supports it or blows a hole in it, like this one.
Yeah.
This time through, when I read that passage, and I made sure to pull up like the Kindle version afterwards, because it was along the lines of what you told me about. I think I mentioned it on the show or after a show. I was like, man, there was a passage I wanted to say, but I was driving, and you're like, that's the point where I just pause my book and switch over to music or something.
Yeah, I
did that for this passage.
Okay.
I switched over, and I wish I would have brought my wife's Kindle, because the last week I was actually getting it up, and I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to bring my wife's Kindle. I'm going to have notes here. I'm going to have passages marked that I want to read and everything like that. And that was the ones there. The biggest one, because I, of course, forgot the Kindle today, because today's been a hectic day for me. But that's the big thing that I wanted to focus on, is that while Flagg may be outside the cycle and trying to get himself out of it, that doesn't change what he's doing. And this goes back to what the conversation we had before with what I believe is a bad person,
Yeah.
a villain. And that's, you can't punish innocence for someone else's wrongdoing. You can't punish the worlds that Flagg's trying to end with the Breakers because Roland stuck you in a loop.
And now here's the question though, with a world, I mean, yeah, you're talking worlds, multiple, but like, if he focuses on mostly what's in front of him in that world, is it a world that's like put it down, like it's like, you know what I mean, like it's a broken world, it's fallen, like
he's trying to end all existence across every level of the tower. That's not a world.
Yeah,
that's the difference. There is that he's not only punishing an innocent football game spectators, he's punishing every level of existence ever.
Yeah,
and that's why, in my opinion, Flagg is one of the most evil characters ever written in the history of literature.
I guess what I would say is that he doesn't come to that like easily, in my opinion. I don't feel that he's like instantly like, when I need to destroy it, but I feel like it's one of those things after trying so many different tactics.
After
it's like,
300 tries, this is where he's like, fuck this,
yeah,
I'm ending it all.
Like, I can't end myself. You know, I would almost guess that would have been his plan at one point, just shoot himself in the Mohane, and that would be the end in his mind, maybe.
Yeah.
But then when Roland refreshes, it's like, well, motherfucker, here I am
Well,
again.
shit.
You know, and from his perspective, it would probably almost be instant, right? If he died. And
it would
then
just be like he would just wake back up.
It would be like
freaking Bruce Banner when he shoots himself in the mouth. The other guy spits it out.
Yeah, but like it's like he shoots himself, and like for Roland, it may be another year or two before he gets to the tower. But then once he does get to it and whatever, then like from Flagg's perspective, it's like close your eyes, open your eyes, and you're in the Mohane again. It's
and
like,
there's no gun. You're like, God damn it.
Yeah, it's like what the fuck? Like, come on.
I get it. No, I get it. I get it. But still, at the same time, the atrocities of bringing down Gilead, the beacon of light, and everything like that. Now, that's a topic that I've kind of skirted around.
Yeah, I have it.
I figured you'd be bringing it up. Is Gilead actually a beacon of light?
Is Gilead? And I guess since you brought it up, we could jump into it.
There are very strong passages against Gilead, especially with like my arguments before with like the stand, and I'll recognize this straight up. I don't believe that Gilead was a great society.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people were left to suffer. I think this was very archaic form of government.
Yeah.
Farson was talking about democracy and everything like that. And again, this still just goes back to what I believe is a villain. You don't punish others for someone's crime.
And this is all obviously before the loop, so now this almost turns into a different conversation. That's why I structured it to being last on my list here, is because ultimately it's different. This is on the handle of the bubble wand. Like this is on in a linear time. You know, he is in the moment. He has sorcery and stuff. He can do some crazy shit. Which is again, because I still see debates with like, because I will say this is all preface on the fact that Farson and Flagg are the same. I believe there's like in the text in the actual story that roots that out. We talked about like the guy that says, you know, your mom sucked John Farson's cock. Farson was not the one sleeping with Gabriella. It was Flagg, basically. So I think that roots it out. Plus the King, whether you want to call it not canon, but the intros, King calls Flagg Farson. Unfortunately, you didn't give me a new example there. I almost thought you did a little earlier with one of your.
With the passage. Yeah.
But I feel they're the same person. I feel one of the arguments I still see brought up is that like we see Farson. He has explained one point physically. It doesn't really match. But the thing is, I've always felt that Flagg is a dude that can change his look.
Oh, he absolutely changes his look multiple times across different books and everything.
Yeah, so
I mean, he goes by different names and different appearances all the time.
Yeah, so I don't feel that like some people. I've seen people bring that up, especially even today. I did some last minute like looking and stuff, and there was people. Well, no, because Farson's described as looking like this, and I'm like, to me, that's the least thing that you can bring up to me because, in my opinion, Flagg is basically a shapeshifter. He's a dude that can do crazy things and appear different ways, and we brought that up in our lead up to the movie. I'm like, I don't care. Maybe Matthew McConaughey can't get signed for multiple movies or into a TV series, but the great thing about Flagg is recast him. You know, he could be a different dude, and it's doable. So in my opinion, I know there's other people that believe differently, and that's totally fine. I know the comic books, which we haven't delved as deeply into, we're gonna be hitting that up in 2019 back again as well. But like, I know in that, like, he is definitely portrayed as a different person.
Yep.
But I think we've talked about this before. I view the comics as a lesser canon. It's a little bit below the books, and I'm going to hold the books as the primary.
Is that where you hold the movie as well now?
I don't know. I mean, because again, I think I consider it like book level canon only because in a lot of ways it fits a lot of the views I have on things. Things like, you know, like Roland having the horn at the end of the books, like, to me, I feel like that's like divine intervention, and Roland has done something in that cycle that was different enough to Gan's like, okay, I'm gonna fucking throw you a bone here, and that could lead to the end of things. And we don't ultimately know, right? Because we only saw the first chapter, but the way the marketing was done, it made us feel like this is the last cycle. You know, so I kind of hold it, but it does in a lot of ways fit a lot of the views I had about almost everything. So I don't have as much
the significance of the eld, the horn. I think the big thing there is that it goes back to, and I think a lot of people miss this, their first or maybe even their second time through. I know I did. I think I may have asked you, or maybe I just finally gave it some really deep thought. What is the significance of the horn? Like, why is that such a big deal? Because there's supposed to be a sigil of the eld given at the Dark Tower, and that's where we think that if Roland's able to climb the tower with his gun, would he end it himself?
I think, and that was my original thought, I think, for sure. But I think that I've evolved to the point where I don't view that way, because that was one of my first things I put it together. But I think I've come to maybe a more nuanced view of things, that it's not necessarily that as much as like this whole thing, this cycle is about the damnation. Roland is damned.
Roland changing himself.
And it's about him redeeming himself and getting that redemption. And I feel like the horn, especially with the way it's described, it's like, why didn't I just spend that extra couple seconds to pick it up? Like, that is what do you call that? That
an epiphany?
No, that emotion. Like
regret?
To hold on to something. You know, like, oh, my friend just died, I'm gonna pick up something as like a keepsake. I'm completely blanking on the fucking word. I hate when that happens to me. It's like
where you're doing it to remember them, yeah.
Yeah, it's
like a keepsake, yeah. I don't know exactly what you're trying to say.
There's a word, and that's what I hate. I love words so much, and I just love studying them. I love using them, but I hate it so much when like one is like perfect and I can't fucking think of what it is. But it shows some element of like Roland's evolution in a way, that like as the cycles are going, maybe he's redeeming more and more of his soul, and it's at a spot where it's like, okay, Gan's like, okay, I'm gonna go outside of the loop and let you have some of the soul that you have, enough to pick up Cuthbert's horn and take it with you. And that, in my view, is not that he's going to shoot himself to end it, but that at a certain point he's close to the point where he gets to the top of the tower, and whatever is there that's not damnation will be there. That's kind of how I view it now. Like, whether that's seeing Gan face to face, whether that's just like him having like the moment of like pearly gates and there's your mother, your father, like, that's not, I don't view it. I'm just saying figuratively, like the moment of like, okay,
here you go.
You've earned this. Yeah. You're done.
Yes.
Like
you've done your redemption.
Yeah.
You've fixed it.
You've served your purgatory.
I think that along those lines, maybe not the pearly gates example.
No,
I'm saying let's fix that. Let's do a Dark Tower version of that. What if instead
clearing at the end of the path?
What if it's instead of the pearly gates, it's him stepping into the clearing at the end of the path and blowing the horn as his comrades and family surround him?
Yeah, exactly.
Jake, Eddie are there.
Cuthbert,
Alan,
his father,
Gabriella, Stephen are there. You know, and everything. All the other fallen comrades over the years.
Real quick, say that happens. Who do you think he goes to first?
What?
He's there. Every important person to him is there.
It needs to be his mother.
Okay,
it absolutely needs to be his mother.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm actually getting chills.
100%.
I'm getting chills that you had the same thought I did. Because I'm the same. It has to be his mom. Because like I feel like if there's anyone that was more fucked over by him in a lot of ways and treated poorly, it's his mom. Mm-hmm. You know, like Susan. Susan is a very close second. And I feel like that would be I think that would be the biggest argument, is maybe he would go to Susan.
No, it would be that classic. It would be that classic thing where it's the Lord of the Rings one. Yes, Merry and Pippin are here. Oh, great. Merry and Pippin. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Gimli and Legolas and and all these people. But then there's that moment. People part, and there's Gabriella standing there with Stephen.
Yeah.
And maybe she looks hesitant. Oh my God, is he still going to be pissed at me?
Yeah.
Is he still, and everything like that. And I'm actually getting kind of emotional thinking about this. I could see Roland walking to his mother and just falling to his knee.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And then her coming down to embrace him, and as the camera pulls back, that would be the end of the Dark Tower for me. But Roland's redeemed.
Yeah.
Jake, Eddie, and Susanna are together in New York because Susanna left him before the tower. He climbs it himself. He has the horn, so he's able to get the conclusion in front of him.
Like maybe even a higher triumph, like blowing it like in the field of roses. That's a really cool moment. One of my favorite moments in the book. But like I feel like there's something different when there's like a conclusion to it, because I feel like also there would be like some opening of his mind that suddenly then he would remember everything.
Yeah.
He would remember each of the cycles. He would suddenly be aware in retrospect that like everything that's happened to me over what may have been centuries or millennia, like suddenly he's aware of it all. It's that clarity. And I feel like his mom, and then I feel like maybe you have like the, after he's done like with his mom, then he, sees Susan, and like that would be, because I feel like that's really important too.
I like the idea of seeing Susan first and then ending with them.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's where you have that classic Hollywood ending where it's yes, here's all my friends, like kind of like what I was saying, like Lord of the Rings, and one of the 85 false endings in Return of the King is that who's the last person that Frodo sees coming? not Gandalf. It's not Legolas. It's not Aragorn. It's not any of the other hobbits. It's Sam.
Yeah.
It's the one, like what we're talking about. It's the one that there needs to be closure with.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And I think that's what it is for Gabrielle. I think that him and Susanna should be one of the first. His friends, and everything like that.
His comrades.
Court would be a good
Yeah.
one. Not Gimp and not injured and everything like that. I think a youthful court would be great. And then there's the Gabrielle. There's the Gabriella Roland reunion. Oh my God, after everything that his mother went through, how he, murdered her, and everything like that. And that's the
Yeah. Think Rhea's in there anywhere?
Fuck you. Oh my God. # Tad is terrible.
Oh. No, I think so. I guess that's my view. I know that just kind of spun into a little tangent of the ending. But yeah, I think that and you kind of alluded to some of it, but I want to at least lay out kind of the points I had about the whole Gilead thing. And what I said is so like I kind of laid the foundation of saying that I think Farson and Flagg are the same person. And I said, in the days of Gilead, he is fighting to overturn a feudalist system that Roland and the Gunslingers are sworn to uphold, and he is trying to bring a democratic society, which is straight from the text. I think you brought it up. I was looking that up just to make sure that I wasn't just inventing that in my mind. And then some of the points I had just below that, like sub-points, is the entire red versus white narrative is only seen from the side of the feudalist gunslingers, which of course would always frame themselves as noble. But then the question I had there was, do we ever question it? It's kind of like the Mother Abigail thing. Like people,
I don't know if people do, but I do.
People question Mother Abigail a little bit at first, but then like they kind of give up on questioning her. Do we as readers question the whole? Yeah, and I think I almost remember us having a conversation where I think that like the light bulb went on for you about like when I started like pointing out some of the things about because it's one of those things again. Like you kind of when you're doing the larger story, it's just like okay, cool, whatever. But then when we're getting to the nitty gritty, and it's like wait. Like he's trying to go for democracy, and then it's something like, oh shit, like how do you?
He's fighting against democracy.
Yeah. So you got that, and then the next thing I have it says he is only framed as a villain here because our main character is Roland, and if you rewrote the story with him as the lead and didn't change anything else, I think that we would see him as the hero. And
Roland is the antagonist.
Yeah, because he's like the big coffin hunter, right? He's like the main dude, the main like right hand person of the feudalist system, right?
Well, it would be the story of the hardcore history that is currently coming out, the new episodes. He's the no other way to put it. He's the brainwashed Japanese soldiers on one of those small islands in the Pacific,
in the
holding out in the 1970s because he doesn't believe that the war is over.
Yeah.
That's what Roland would be in that story.
Yeah,
that's what instantly pops into my mind. Real fast before we continue, and I agree with you on this. You're gonna have to keep track of the chat. My phone just died on me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just wanted to point that out to you so that you can keep an eye out because I know that we have a couple of people watching and I don't want to miss anything.
Okay.
But yeah, it just flat out I thought it was gonna make it through the show. It did not. It is dead.
Yeah, and I don't even have my battery pack around.
That's what I thought I brought with me. I seriously, that's one of the reasons why I was running a little bit late. I was down there in my cart. I put it in the car.
Yeah.
The goddamn gremlins got to it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you that it's really hard to root for Gilead when you start looking at it, like especially like geopolitical. Like we've had this debate about the Stand before. Is Boulder really the right way to go? Is the government that Flagg sets up? Because I know you've had this conversation with me several times, and you always have the same statement to say: "There's no crime in Vegas. There's no broken windows. There's no fights over menage a trois or not menage a trois. Someone committing adultery and cheating on a spouse.
Yeah, like love triangles.
Love triangles. That's the word I was trying to think of, and it was coming out all wrong. And everything that doesn't exist in there.
There's really no room for it.
There's no room for it, and that's where the argument is kind of backwards when it comes to the Dark Tower, because then you get in there and Farson, like you said, is fighting for democracy and the people rule and everything like that. And Gilead's like, no, rebel. And it's like, everything I've been taught for fiction, look at everything that is me.
Yeah.
The right to choose Captain America. That's the reason I'm a Captain America fan. The right to choose Star Wars. Need to get out from under the Empire.
Yeah.
The right to choose The Lord of the Rings. Sauron's a bad guy. You know, all of these fandoms that I have
Yeah.
are based around, you know, like democracy and freedoms and stuff like that. And that's, you know, my points with the stand and everything like that.
Yeah. So
Went
it's
along
suddenly
those lines.
hard.
And then all of a sudden I have Roland, who's the son of Gilead, who's exact opposite of that and putting democracy in the ground, saying that it's bad. It's like,
But see, isn't that the beauty of King's writing, though?
yes.
Is that, and also, like, ultimately, like, if he's the descendant of Arthur Eld, right? Like, and he's, like, part of this, like, ancient, like, order and stuff, I almost think you have to have him, like, kind of protecting, like, this feudalistic system and stuff, you know? Like,
Right.
It's what makes sense. Like, you couldn't make Gilead a democracy because it's like, how does a democracy fit into Arthur Eld? Like, you know, like, we as Americans, like, okay, you like we don't look at like King Arthur, you know, like we may look at it as like a fiction, but we don't look at it and go, you know, oh God, yeah, like that's like we have a straight line from that, you know, like, you know, through England, and then that line splits and it comes to us, and we're like, you know, still somewhat descendants of King. Like, no, we don't, because it's like that's the wrong system.
It's a fairy tale.
Well, it's the wrong system too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a singular rule. It's like we don't believe
Which is
that.
why you don't see people in America comparing themselves to Rome. Both are republics, both are designed around democracy and the idea behind it. But Rome was always like, is always viewed as like
giving up its republic to being a dictatorship in times of emergency.
Yeah, and it's always, Rome is always viewed as like, you know, like, yes, they were the first republic. They were also one of the most corrupt fucking places ever in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
You know, that's where a lot of people don't exactly reflect on Rome in a positive light.
Yeah, as much of a positive light. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's like some of my points for Flagg, because I think like I said, you have like the pre-loop and then the post-loop, and I think what it really just comes down to is it's just like that's where I see it. And again, and it's props to King for the writing, because like the reason I love Magneto is because he's written as the antagonist in the original X-Men.
He's got a point,
but the thing is over the last, especially the last 20 years, they've turned him. At this point right now, if you go pick up a comic book, unless they've done any kind of reboot that I'm not aware of, Magneto's a good guy. You know, like he's straight. He's like, he's your white hat now.
Is he still killing people?
No, like there's a point where one of the things I read, I can't remember which series it was, but Scott Summers is kind of like, there's very few mutants left. It's after a horrible thing happens in regards to the Scarlet Witch and wiping out most mutants. So there's very few left, and I think it's one of the, I think it's either the first, I think it's the first Avengers versus X-Men, and there's a point when Magneto, because Scott's kind of in charge, the Magneto's like, you sound a lot like I did back in the day. Like, you're saying the wrong things, you're thinking the wrong things, like you're not on the right path right here. You know, so Magneto, they've completely like Breaking Bad was like taking Mr. Chips and turning him into Scarface. Over the last 50 whatever years, Marvel's done the same thing with Magneto, is they've taken him from
Scarface
and brought him back to Mr. Chips in a lot of ways. Excuse me. And I think like that's what makes him it's the writing that allows that. You know, it's not a Bond villain. Like, you couldn't turn Blofeld into a good guy at any point. He's too two-dimensional. But you write a character that's so good that like you can see that turn happen. You know, you can see him eventually change his ways and stuff. And I feel like props to King for writing a character that we could have this on. You know, if we were doing a James Bond podcast, even me, I don't think I would be sitting there going, yeah, let's debate about if Blofeld's a hero or a villain. You know, because he's just not written well enough to be to have that debate. Darth Vader, again, written so well that like you can debate, and especially when you get the prequels added in, suddenly now you get the context of what he came from. It's like,
and that's where I've always stood with Magneto. Is it always goes back to my same philosophy, and I don't know if I've ever exactly explained it the way I have on this show for you. It's like, it's the same thing with Magneto. You look at him early on, and it was, well, we're the next evolution of humans, so fuck all humans, let's kill them. And that's where it really got me with like Magneto. Like, yeah, I get it. Humans, there is a group of humans who are anti-mutant who are out to kill you guys. I get it. That's not all of them though. Like you shouldn't punish all for the actions of a few. And that's same thing. That's where my philosophy goes, and that's where I draw that line for what a villain is. And so with Flagg, you know, bringing this all back to the Flagg Summit, the thing with Flagg is it all comes down to the breakers. It all comes down to the fact that he's working for the Crimson King, and he's the one who sets up Algo Ciento. He's the one who finds the first breakers. He's the one who assigns the Taheen to guard them and sets up there in Algo Ciento to break the beams and bring down the tower. Now he's hoping to climb it secretly before that. But at the end of the day, that's for his own personal gain and his own personal safety. He doesn't give a fuck about the trillions of other life forms on the different levels of the towers in all existences, multiple dimensions and stuff like that. Yeah. And that's where I draw that line for Flagg.
But I think that in defense, in a way, is it like he's playing on a much bigger stage than Magneto is. You know what I mean? In terms of like, to compare them, like Magneto,
one level of existence, one planet,
and even one country in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't even get as much outside of America until later on in the comics. Yeah. Like it's about the struggle, you know, and also his like background as like a Holocaust survivor to be like, yeah, dude, like I know how this works. I know how this is going to end up.
I know how registration works first.
Yeah, I know where this is going to end up, and I'm not going to let it fucking happen. Like, period. I don't care what I have to do. That's not going to happen. Like, it's very, I don't want to say elemental, but it's a lot less. Whereas, like, when you get into the Dark Tower and you're dealing with the tower itself, suddenly you're dealing with now, like you said, I mean, trillions might be underselling it. I mean, you're talking if you're talking multiverse level stuff, you're talking potentially.
What's the next one above trillions?
Untold amounts of. I mean, I'm trying to think of what that quadrillion is. It for quad, right? For 4
quadrillion.
Just tree is 3. A try. I mean, is 3. So I don't know. Even though I pulling that out of my ass. I'm not looking it up or anything, but that would be my guess maybe. But yeah, like it could be even higher than that. I mean, it could literally be an infinite in amount, really. The way multiverses work. So I guess what I would say is that because he's playing on that, he doesn't choose to play on that stage. You know, like his goal is to, whether it's free himself or whether it is to try to establish himself as a god, to get out of everything. Like he doesn't define the stage, so I guess I would say maybe it's tough to hold him to the fact of what he's putting at stake, because he doesn't really set those bounds. He doesn't pick the game he's in, right? Like, because maybe he would pick Magneto's side and go, no, I just want to be on like a singular existence in a singular area, like, because that's easier, right? You know, so I would say that maybe is somewhat of an excuse is that he doesn't really pick his game. Unfortunately, his fucking luck, he ends up playing the game at literally the highest level to where, yeah, you're going to potentially kill an infinite amount of people.
When you play the game of towers, there are going to be losers.
yeah. And again, when you think about that, it's so incredible because, like, I mean, Marvel built a multiverse over decades and decades, and it's like Stephen King, I guess technically he's built decades, but a lot of the multiverse stuff really comes in the last chunk of books. So it's like you're talking, I don't know how much he built in such a short time. Like, I'm amazed by it. I really am. But yeah, I think that's mostly my case. Like before the loop, you know, looking at Farson, I think that he's more in line with what we would agree with. You know, in terms of like democracy and stuff. And then after the loop, I would just say that, like, I don't know, I guess I'm giving him a pass for the things he does because of the situation that he's in, I guess.
Let me ask you a question. Why does Flagg care if Gilead falls? Like what would be the purpose there of joining up with Farson and overthrowing Gilead? What really good does that do?
Like
I have a theory.
Like what's Flagg's benefit, or like
what's Flagg's benefit from having Farson overthrow Gilead? Like, and I have a theory for this that it kind of goes along the lines with like Thor Ragnarok, is that Gilead's the last bastion of light. I'm using air quotes here, light.
Yeah.
You know, Arthur Eld, the light, and everything like that. That they may be the last line of defense where it's, you know, Odin kind of thing. Yeah. You know, is that Odin's the last thing keeping Hela in hell. You know?
Yeah.
And keeping her back. And I think that may be kind of a similar situation where Flagg would have never reached the tower and would have never been able to do what he did in Algo with Gilead still standing. And I think that's why he overthrew them. Not for the idealistic reasons that Farson had. I think he used Farson, and I think that's where it goes into the lines with my thoughts that Flagg's a bad guy, is that he's just doing what he needs to for personal gain. Fuck everyone else.
I guess that's the real question is what is his goals before the loop? Mm-hmm. Like when you look at it as a linear thing, before the loop,
he's working for the Crimson King there.
Before the loop happens, it's just a straight line, and even for his first cycle, he wouldn't even know that he's in a loop. For him, in his perspective, it's a linear thing. So I guess I've never even really considered too heavily like pre-loop, like what is Flagg's driving force?
Well, he's still working for the Crimson King, and I think that's where the Crimson King wants to bring the tower down.
Yeah, but like,
and I think that's where Flagg is at, is that he wants to climb the tower before it falls. He says that in book 7 with the passage that I read. He says he wants to get to the tower before it falls. It's simple.
But like, when did he get that in his mind though? Because like ultimately that's treachery against the Crimson King. So like, are we talking from square one that he has that in his mind? Because
I think that's why he goes to work for the Crimson King.
If so, he goes to work for the Crimson King solely to use his resources to fuck him over.
Right, and at the same time, billions, possibly trillions, possibly more will die for his gain, for Flagg's gain. And that's where, again, I can't call that a good guy, because he's doing it for himself, and he's doing it at the expense of innocence. And that's where I draw that line.
But if we look at it linear, with the things I would question, how much does he understand about the multiverse?
Well, he knows. That's why he's having the beams brought down.
Well, no, right away. And like, I'm talking like, assuming he decides to start working for the Crimson King to overthrow him or to get to the tower first, whatever you want to say, like it's linear. So he's not trying to break a cycle because there's no cycle yet.
Right.
What's his
end game?
Yeah. What's his goal?
His end game is simply so that he can get to the tower, climb it, and become a god. Is that his? I guess that's the question. Is that his original goal? Yeah.
And the other thing, as I would say, is like I said, does he understand the multiverse enough to know, or does he think he's just killing the singular world? Does he think he's in Magneto's shoes until during the course of things and eventually the loop where he starts to realize, like, oh shit, no, this is like, and maybe once the loops are happening, at what point does he start branching off and getting into the Stand and Eye of the Dragon and stuff? Like that's a curiosity I have, is like, when does all that shit start to happen? We ultimately will never know, but it's interesting to think about, like, when he's in Magus, like, has he gone through the Stand yet?
Yeah.
Has he done Eye of the Dragon yet?
The Stand is his first thing. He says that in book 7, where the Stand was one of his first ventures out on his own.
Which makes sense with what we talked about in the Stand episode
why do he make so many stupid mistakes?
Yeah, because we feel like that's like almost not, I don't want to say like adolescent or like whatever, but like
it's rookie Flagg.
It's it's rookie Flagg. Like the Flagg there versus the Flagg in Dark Towers, in my opinion, is vastly different.
Dark Tower Flagg would have obliterated Boulder in a day.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have had to have any help whatsoever.
He could have done it singularly. Whereas like, so it's almost like the difference, like a JV high school quarterback versus an NFL quarterback is like the difference in my mind between the two. So I guess you'd say the Stand is first. So then is the epilogue of the Stand his realization of like the fact that maybe he's beyond just like, is the Stand his first? Like, because we talk in the Stand, we see like him go through like his history, right? Like the abusive dad or whatever. Then he runs away from home. Like we get that. So it's like, is he just like, is when he wakes up with that tribe, is that the first time that he realizes like, holy shit, like something's different here. Like because
levitation.
Well, the levitate, but that's all new to a certain point to him. Remember when he
was always able to levitate before. The eye was new, where he could send out the eye to spy and stuff like that. But I think that he always kind of knew that he was different. And I honestly, this is just my core belief. I believe that he's there on that level on a mission from the Crimson King. There's absolutely no reason why he would be in a world filled with super flu if it wasn't for the Crimson King, which is why it comes up in book 4 on the highway and everything like that in Kansas. That's where Roland and them land. It's Flagg kind of like flexing his muscles, like, bring it. I once destroyed a world.
Yeah.
Even though you say it wasn't his fault.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think there's anything in the Stand to say. I mean, you could speculate, like we've been speculating this whole episode in some cases. You can speculate that he's the one that
influenced the U.S. to
or
violate the Geneva Convention.
Well, I believe that's happening anyway. I would fully believe that we have things like that. Like, and maybe not the actual super flu, but I feel like we have like all the chemical things that we never are supposed to use. I don't doubt that our country, in every country, I don't doubt that almost any of them are doing that shit, even though we'll never use it, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
But no, what I mean is like, at one point we were debating, I think it was off mic, about like Flagg causing the outbreak in terms of like him being there to like help Campion get out, or like
he's
in
the
some
one that
way
caused the door
influence,
to malfunction.
Yeah, causing the door to malfunction, whatever. I don't know. Like, again, that's something you can only speculate on. I don't really buy that. I think I've always loved the idea more that it's just like kind of the happening of like whatever, and then he's kind of like put there beyond his own comprehension for that moment, for that time.
What I think it is it's the Crimson King has gone insane, and he has some kind of site where it's like, okay, in this world on this level of the tower, here's the door you need to go through to get to Nevada. you need to be here at this time to get there for when the flu's outbreaking.
Yeah.
And then you need to bring this whole thing to ruin, because here's what I think, and this may tie into the Dark Tower with what your boy Flagg was up to. Well, let's say he doesn't get nuked. Let's say he destroys Boulder. What then?
Yeah.
Does he just rule the world at that point, slowly taking over the rest of the world? No. What
or
if
does
he
he keep his little pocket?
Or what if he sets a trap in Kansas for a fucking gunslinger who's going to come through with his quartet at one point?
Yeah, because that has different brand cars and stuff, so that could have easily been a standout outline that he wins basically.
Yeah. What if he does it out there and everything like that, and sets up an ambush? And that was the whole purpose of the stand, was to ambush Roland and end the cycle, like what you're talking about.
Yeah, very well.
When I say end the cycle, obviously you have the thinking that it's end the cycle for Flagg, and I'm of the mind now that it's end the cycle for the Crimson King, so he can bring the tower down.
Yeah, there's just part of me that just thinks he's doing his own thing, and he's basically gaming the Crimson King. Especially with some of that stuff.
No, I'm with you on that. I'm wholeheartedly with you on that. I just don't believe that Flagg's outside the loop anymore. Because the fact that he says that he turned around one day and saw Roland on his tail in the Mohaine Desert and was surprised by it. He says that in book 7. I don't see how he could be surprised if he's outside of the loop.
Unless he's literally remembering like the first loop or the first portion, or even maybe the first time when it's still linear and before the loops. You know what I mean? Like because at some point
make that assumption.
At some point the straight line like stop, but he doesn't realize to stop it. It circles back around, and until he hits that refresh, it's like, oh shit, I'm back to this. Like
right, but we're also of the mindset, we've already established this, that the books are not the first telling. He could be remembering that. You're stretching that a little bit, I think.
No, I don't think so.
No, I think so, because if he's going to be like, I looked around in the Mohaine Desert all those times, he doesn't say any indication whatsoever to a loop or whatever.
Because I don't think
the books is not the first telling.
But the thing is, I don't think that he is firstly aware of Roland at the first line of the book, which is when the loop starts. I think he would have been in the Mohaine Desert on the linear timeline, on the singular timeline, when he realized that Roland was after him.
Right, but if he's outside of the loop, it doesn't matter. The telling that he's in book 7 where he's talking to himself, he has no reason to lie. He's not going to be talking about it in the linear form. He's going to be talking about it in the loop form if he's outside of the loop. He would understand that, and he would explain it that way. That's not how he explains it. He explains it as a singular instance where he talks with the Crimson King. The Crimson King tells him, we're not done with Roland yet. Flagg doesn't really believe him until one time, until the day in the desert where he turns around and, oh shit, there's a gunslinger on my trail. It's not one time he turns around. It's not multiple times.
Well, yeah, because again, that's in your linear point, though. In Mages is when he told him that's before the loop.
Right, no.
And what I'm saying is when he looks back and sees Roland, could still be before the loop, too. That could still be on your, like, late on the handle before you get into the loop. But it could very well be that, like, that, you know.
But there's still no indication that the Flagg's in the loop there. There's no indication whatsoever. You're pointing to that as that's proof that he's in the loop. There is no proof there that he's in a loop.
No, I'm just saying that him not reflecting the loop in that line doesn't disprove the loop, in my opinion. It just shows like that potentially what's being referenced there is maybe because it's in the desert, it's just before the loop starts. Just like Roland, like he remembers like Magus and stuff, because that is technically it's weird because now you're into this like weird shit where it's like the loop even existing, but it's like you're moving back outside of the loop.
And you take the Back to the Future timeline. Just because Marty split off into an alternate timeline, that doesn't mean that he doesn't remember his life previous.
Yeah, like in his mind, a week ago, you know, like
was a week in 1985.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this weird time travel shit. Soon I'm gonna go cross-eyed, you know. But no, I guess that would be my rebuttal to like what you're saying is that like
that doesn't disprove.
Yeah, when he looks back and sees Roland, like, oh fuck, and like that could even be a couple days before the loop part starts. But because at one point he's going to be walking through the desert and Roland's going to be on his tail. Because like I would say the first line is midway through a chase, right? It's not the beginning of the chase. It's not like...
Well, no, because the thing to remember is that the Mohaine Desert's after Toll. So Roland was on his trail before Toll.
Yeah.
The Mohaine Desert's the desert after Toll. Because that's where he meets Brown, and that's where he tells him about Toll.
Okay, so that would...
So Toll is not inside the loop either.
Okay.
That's the important part to remember.
Yeah, which still goes to my point then that he would have realized Roland is on his tail before the loop starts.
Yeah, because he knows that he's on his tail in Toll.
Yeah.
And that's why he sets the trap there.
Yeah. So when he's remembering that in book 7, like you're saying, is my point, I guess, is we're getting to, I know this is getting somewhat pedantic at this point, but I don't know, I still enjoy it. But what it comes down to is that, like, when he's remembering that, he's still he's remembering back past the loop to where he's back into the linear point.
Okay.
To remember, like, yeah, then suddenly, like,
But still,
first he tells me here, and then suddenly one day I'm fucking in the desert and he's on my fucking tail, like,
right.
Like.
But there's no indication in anything that he ever says in any of the books that he's outside of the loop, except in the Golgotha, where he's telling the fortune that may have been given to him by the Crimson King.
I feel like some of his snide remarks are outside of it, like the never for you, like there's just like some of that shit's like,
right. But also at the same time, he's working for the Crimson King. I agree with you. He's working for the Crimson King for his own personal.
What does
goals.
he say in Kansas too? That would be the other thing that I'd be curious about, because we see them interact very little. So like in Kansas, is there anything he said? I'd have to, next time I read it, I'll have to. The
important thing that he always says is that he's trying to cry off the tower, Roland. Cry off the tower.
Yeah.
Which of course is the message that the Crimson King has given Flagg and said, go get this guy to stop going to the fucking tower.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, is there any barb that he may have thrown in the Kansas point, that because that would be something that would show that, like, maybe beyond what he's prepped by the Crimson, because I see what you're saying in terms of, like, it could just be fed to him and stuff,
and that's where my theory that the Crimson King is the one maybe outside of the loop, because he's stuck at the nexus of the tower and it's been driven him insane, which is why he's now Mad King and everything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely, again, that's what we find with this series is
there's still more.
The longer we go, the more it's just like things evolve and there's different takes on things and stuff. I mean, the ending for me has been one that's changed for me at least 3 times. Like now I'm at the point where it's kind of this clearing at the end of the path view is how I view it, where it's just like, okay, you've done your time in purgatory, you're done now. Like
now you can go
whereas like the very first time that I was like, oh, the horn is important because then he could put that down, have his gun and fucking blow his brains out. Like, but again, not even that that's wrong, but that was just, it's kind of fun to, I don't know.
No, yeah.
I love that we pick up a series like this for a podcast just because of that, it's
there's
so
just
deep,
so
it's
much
so
to
rich.
it, yeah.
There's, I mean, what do they say? There was like 5,000 something pages or something crazy like that. So yeah, that's good. So I think that's pretty much I don't know. I think that's pretty much all the.
Is that the Flagg Summit?
I think that is it.
Hey, we didn't come to blows.
Not yet.
Wait till we get off the air.
Yeah, all the fighting has to be done off air because you guys just hear a bunch of like distant like scuffling,
China breaking. Oh, you son of a bitch!
No,
stop pulling my beard.
This is fun though, and this even got way deeper than a lot of. The only one that even comes close to this would maybe be the Vader one.
Yeah.
In terms of like for our history off mic and stuff would be maybe the Vader one, just because there's a lot in Star Wars too, obviously. So.
And we're such huge nerds for Star Wars.
Yeah, indeed. So, I guess I'm trying to remember. Did we do? Because I thought about that because you mentioned my other show. Did we talk about it on the roundtables yet?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
We did, didn't we?
Oh no,
dude! It's been too long since we've had a roundtable.
Yeah, I know.
It's 2 weeks since we last recorded.
That's why
that was a book club.
Remember, I was kind of like right before we started recording. I was like, man, is there something else for the news? Hopefully, if not, I guess hopefully nobody's like stopped the podcast. But yeah, I have started my podcast. It's Palaver with Tad. And you can find it on any of your podcast services for the most part. I don't really have a YouTube or a website, but I'm on Twitter. It's at Palaver with Tad and stuff. So go ahead and check me out. Look up the podcast. Go ahead and give it a listen. I've got 4 episodes I dropped. I was thinking I'm probably just going to refresh with the new year because 4's probably more than I'll ever do in a month. So, dropping 4 at once is probably good enough to feed everyone for December.
In case if we haven't talked about it on the roundtables, when did you start this podcast? So they can understand that these aren't 4 episodes you recorded just like last week.
Oh yeah. No, it was all. The first episode was recorded the 25th of October. It was the 40th anniversary of the Halloween movie. I went to see for my second viewing the new Halloween movie, and just kind of like wanted to like talk about one of my favorite horror movies, and so just recorded it. And then over the subsequent week, I think I recorded another episode, and then I started doing things like designing a logo and registering things and got all that done. So, and then over the course before everything got posted, I ended up recording and I think like I recorded the Infinity War or the Endgame trailer reaction that I did. I think I recorded that literally right about the time that the show went live. So that's kind of the timeline. So over the course of like maybe a month, I recorded most of the shows, probably somewhere in there. But yeah, for right now, it's just been me. But I'm hoping at one point to have some guests on. Peter, we got Hayden and Caden I've mentioned in both shows. Hoping to definitely have some guests on at certain points, maybe even some listeners from this show that that have talked to me. So yeah, if hopefully everyone hasn't checked out, but yeah, that we did tease that a little bit on our roundtables. I know we announced it on a book club, but I can't remember if we did the roundtables. If not, this is kind of your announcement.
Yeah.
If we did it on another one that's just a repeat, then cry your pardon. And yeah, we'll go ahead and hit the outro stuff for this show. If you want to subscribe, you can do that on iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. The show notes are at darktowerpalaver.com. And you can also find us on multiple ways for social media. And is that what you're writing earlier?
Yeah, that's what I wrote down before my phone died because I have it saved on my phone. So I wrote it down so we could still have it at the close.
I was wondering you're jostling
Yeah.
on notes over there.
I know, paper and pen. I'm so archaic. So uncivilized. So you can reach us. It's email is the best way to get us. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com. We have Facebook page. It's facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. And then we're on the Twitter. It's @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. And then you can find our live shows when we stream on youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. And then also check out our old roundtables on there. Book clubs are streamed live, but not saved due to copyright issues with the sound clips that we use.
Yes, indeed. So that's it for this episode, and that's it for 2018. And we're here only a few days before Christmas. So whatever holiday you celebrate, Festivus, whatever it might be, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever, have a good one. And having a good New Year too. We'll see you on, what did I say it was? The 5th?
January 5th.
January 5th, which is 2 weeks from now.
Yep.
So we'll be back at the kind of like we're not stopping for the end of the year. And yeah, we'll see you then, and can't wait for 2019.
The year of the tower.
The year of the tower, or the year of the pig.
Turtle? That's the year of the pig is what it is.
The Dixie pig. So see you next time. And as we always say, long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
And it looks like, I don't know if there's anyone still in the chat, but if so, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Chris, for sure. OG Chris definitely chimed in a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I know we had some other people in there, but they were definitely staying quiet in the chat. I do have it on. Oh, shit. I didn't have it on live chat again because I had to refresh my page. But it's no different. So we didn't have anyone that I missed. So, yeah, thanks for everyone for joining us, and we will see you next time on the live stream, and hopefully we'll have you give you more heads up. Sorry about the lack of notice. All right, see you guys.
See you next year.